one solution, yes.
It is one solution.
Hello, everybody. My name is Aiden Crenshaw. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. Apparently, my laptop, which was working fine with my capture rig, was not wanting to work while I was here at IUS. So we are just going to be, for permanent recording, just going to be the slides. But then again, I'm not that pretty, so I don't think it really matters. And that gives me some time to lose weight before my next session, so I don't have the double chin anymore. I swear, DerbyCon, 2 years ago, I mean, it's like the pictures the guy took, good photographer, but yeah, they look like hell in all of them. Anyway, my name is Aiden Crenshaw. I run IronGeek.com. There's my Twitter handle if you want to follow me on Twitter. I have an interest in InfoSec education. I don't know everything. I'm just a geek with time in my hands. I may get some things wrong. Let me know if I get something screwed up. And I'm also a senior information security engineer at a Fortune 1000 company and co-founder of DerbyCon. All right. I'm going to be taking two perspectives on this. I know we have a little bit of law enforcement in the room, so, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to help the criminals, but at the same time, there are definitely political dissidents I'd like to help, and those people who are out there looking for privacy who I want to help. So I look at them as both perspectives. To me, it's fascinating because I look at it from how do I de-anonymize someone, and also how do I keep from getting de-anonymized myself. I just find it interesting on both sides. So I'm going to be talking about a few case studies, and sometimes it'll sound like I'm siding with the criminal, but not so much that as it is I find it interesting. I find thinking about the how to get away with things is far more interesting sometimes than how to catch people. But the how to catch people kind of plays into that. So we're going to be covering a little bit of both of those. I'll have a whole other talk on that, and if we do a future session on this, I may just concentrate on forensics evidence and also what you can do on the network to try to detect this stuff. I'm not really a privacy guy. The truth of the matter is, if I thought all secrets could be known, I probably would have it that way. There's a statement amongst the privacy community that, well, they hate the statement, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But see, I think the statement is true. Unfortunately, everybody has something to fear. You may not be that you should have to. Let's say you're a gay dude in certain cities around the world. You shouldn't have to hide that, but you do have something to fear depending on where you live in the world, and you do want to keep that hidden. So that's why I come down at. And also, I realize that those who have more power have more ability to hide. So even though I'm not really a privacy guy, I find the subject interesting. Oh, also, I am not a lawyer. If such a thing as a soul exists, I believe I have one. So there you go. So I may be asking some questions of law enforcement here, which I know you all, I don't believe are either lawyers either. But I do have some questions about contraband and what the proper procedures are if you see something. Because it's kind of a weird catch-22 when it comes to darknets. So that brings you to be careful where you surf. We're going to be visiting some websites. We are going to be visiting one site where they sell drugs. That, as long as you're not buying anything, you shouldn't be breaking any laws, to my knowledge. However, there's some other sites that you may see linked to called Chans. Some Chans are completely innocent. Some of the Chans on Tor and I2P, not such great places to visit unless you want contraband on your machine. And by contraband, I mean child porn. Actually, I want to ask this question. My understanding from a legal standpoint, if you see child porn, you must report it. However, in the case of a darknet, you have no way of being able to tell them where exactly that actually really exists. So if you're a security researcher, you're constantly going to be hitting this stuff, and if you're constantly contacting the police over things they can never actually, or very rarely ever actually go out and do anything about it, how do you conduct research? Is that the proper form though? Legally speaking, if you see it, you have to report it, correct?
For the most part, yes. And I also am not a lawyer. But the way we normally work investigations is if the reason we would ask you to report it if you just happen to come across it is just for some other reason. If, I'm sure you secure your Wi-Fi or something like that, but if for some reason your IP address got associated with, child porn, and we did execute a search warrant, and the search warrant allowed us to look for child pornography, that we wouldn't find some of the stuff you happen to have come across. So that way it's like, he already told us about it, let's just go see what it is. So maybe when you make that initial contact, I know we've spoken about it before, that it's like, I am doing, darknet research, and I have come across it in the past. And some of the reasons why we'd ask you to reach out to us a second time is victim identification is also very important. So sometimes it may seem ridiculous to you, but if you share the URL with us, you know, it may be a new victim or maybe a new image of a victim that there may be stuff in the background that may allow us to identify.
So I didn't think about it from that angle.
A particular hotel, or maybe you can see the offender. A lot of these pictures have some pretty horrific stuff in it where, you know, it's not just a naked child, it's just someone actually in the process of being abused. So you may get a reflection of the guy's face or something in there. So don't download it, but if you come across it.
Technically, you've downloaded it if you're viewing in your browser.
Yes, but don't download it, put it in an email, and send it to your friendly law enforcement guy.
Gotcha.
Bad idea. We understand that in the browser cache and all that stuff. And,
maybe the best call, because I've also heard of overzealous prosecutors, maybe the best call is to use Tor mail or I2P's mail system and send, they have gateways to the public internet. Yeah. Don't send the image, but still contact law enforcement with the URL saying, you may want to look into this.
Yeah.
That might be the best call for both helping law enforcement identify victims and also, because, you know, while I believe most of the cops are out there to do good and so forth, you make, well, back to my crack about lawyers earlier, a prosecutor that wants to make any kind of record for himself, I just don't.
And also, some people in the law enforcement community are not that familiar with computers, technology, and other stuff, and they may not really know that much of a difference. So then, you know, they may not be able to get vetted out. They may just go, hey, this guy's got child porn on his computer. Well, I mean, that's why the Tor mail and all that stuff, myself, where we work, we're hyper vigilant about not, you know, getting it on our machines. And I use, you know, a VM that's reset. So, you know, if I am going to a link to investigate it for something like that, that there is no, you know, residual put on my computer. We can't have anything on our computers aside from specifically designated computers that are, you know, allowed to have that on there, primarily forensic workstations.
Okay, thanks for the information.
And if there's any other questions afterwards, feel free to ask them.
Alrighty. Feel free to say your name or not say your name, depending on whether or not you care about being anonymous.
My name's Joe. I'm with the FBI.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, part 0. The basics of Tor and I2P. One thing I did learn from school here was you count from 0. Alright, a darknet. There's a bunch of other names for darknets. Personally, I like the term cypherspace. Sometimes people also refer to these as deep web, though deep web technically is more things that aren't searched, like private databases and so forth. They're still on the public internet, but not necessarily easily searchable. So I'd prefer the term either darknets or cypherspaces, but essentially it's a anonymizing private network. Generally, they use a series of proxies and multiple levels of encryption to anonymize who's actually doing what. Now, the most famous one, of course, is Tor, which is short for the Onion Router. And here's a little history of it. It was originally a project of the U.S. Navy Laboratory, and now it's its own 501(c), so you can donate to it. EFF ran it for a little bit of time. But it's an open source project. I'll just read from the mission statement so you understand why it's out there. Tor is free software and an open network that helps you defend against a form of network surveillance that threatens personal freedom and privacy, confidential business activities and relationships, and state security known as traffic analysis, as defined by their site. What you use it for is a lot of times normal internet sites, but also you can use them for Tor hidden services. Who all here has heard of the SilkRoad? Okay, then I don't have to explain a whole lot about that. You can put up your own website and make it incredibly hard for anybody to figure out where that's actually hosted. The reason they got SilkRoad was, I'd say, mostly because the guy in charge of it did some really stupid shit. OPSEC is important. And actually, the thing is, you could tell he's a bright guy because of how he was able to pull off most things. But some of the things he let slip himself about the internet, apparently he doesn't know how good people are with Google. I can usually find tons of stuff on people. And at one time, and this is hard to put on a resume, I was the #2 hit on Google for how to cyberstalk. Yeah, that one's a little bit hard to explain to people. I don't think I am anymore. Someone think about someone stalking the ex-husband now. But it was actually how to cyberstalk potential employers. So when you go into a job interview, you know a ton about them. So you're like, oh yeah, you all have this on your network and that and that. But here's how it works: is you have a SOCKS proxy on your local machine that you connect to with your browser or whatever other utility, and that forwards everything out on the Tor network. So Tor uses layered encryption. So it's like a Ogre. It has multiple layers. It's bidirectional tunnels, and the way it's let me back up. It has directory servers also that you have to query stuff from to be able to get and use Tor, and that's kind of a central weak spot. But as long as you trust who controls the directory servers, you're probably in a pretty good stance. Most people seem to use it to focus on proxying out to the public internet. And the way Tor works, like I said before, like an Ogre, it has layers. And there's like 3 levels of encryption, depending on how you have tunnels set up. I believe you can arbitrarily somewhat change this. But by default, you have 3 layers of encryption. You send on to the first node with your with it encrypted with that person's public key. That gets stripped off and sent off to the next person, and that finally gets stripped off to the third person, who then sends it out on the public internet. The way this works, and the reason it does what it does, is because this way, the first person that you sent to, well, it's layered, it has 2 extra levels of encryption. He can't get past, so he doesn't know where it's actually being sent to, other than the next destination. This person knows where it came from here, but he doesn't know about you right here. And this person here knows about him, but doesn't know about this one or this one. So by relaying it several steps, you don't know who the originator is. And that's the core idea behind it. And with the multiple levels of encryption, each person, the endpoint can actually sniff it and see what's actually inside the packets. Then again, you can also have another layer of encryption like SSL inside of Tor. So maybe they can't. We'll get maybe a little bit more into rogue exit points later on. But he can see where it's going, but has no idea where it's coming from. These guys have no idea where it's really going. And this one knows where it's coming from, but no idea what's in it. There's ways of kind of figuring out some of that, though. So here's a layer of how Tor works. You can pick random destination servers, and here's the way the link goes. This is the official documentation pictures for it. The directory server basically just gives you a list of nodes in the Tor network that you can hop through, and then you construct a random path through it. Though it gets a little bit more complex than this, they use things called guard nodes that they have a little bit greater level of trust as your first hop, because there's something called a correlation attack, which I'll explain later on more. Let's say, let's say it's a country that wants to monitor its citizens. If they were able to control both the entry point and the exit point, and they see 5 megs of data going encrypted here, 5 megs come back out here, 2 megs come back in here, 2 megs go back out here, they can, from timings and sizes, get a good idea of who's talking to who and who's actually sending something. So you want to make sure the person who is your entry node is not the same as your exit node. Otherwise, that could be bad. Alright, and so you could extrude the circuit and makes the connection out. The one in red is the one to be unencrypted. And of course, depending on what's riding on top of Tor. If it's an encrypted protocol riding on top of Tor, it will be still encrypted when it goes out, just not with Tor. Also, you got to be worried about rogue access points. Who has ever heard of SSL strip? Okay, SSL strip, for those who don't know about it, essentially it takes your SSL encrypted traffic, drops off the HTTPS, proxies it for itself, and makes it HTTP, and passes it on to you. Now, if you're watching your browser real carefully, you'll see it doesn't say it's encrypted. It says it's HTTP and not HTTPS. But by doing that, if you're not paying attention, they might be sniffing your traffic. Also, you might get warnings about the certificate isn't signed properly. There's something might be up. If you see those kind of messages on Tor, don't do anything private, because probably someone on an exit point is messing around with the traffic. And there are plenty of people who do set up those kind of things, if nothing else, for personal research. I know a researcher named Bob who set one up just to see what kind of traffic was going across the Tor network. Strangely enough, a lot of Asian porn. Completely legal stuff in the United States, but a lot of Asian porn. And Bob's theory was that, there's certain really stringent porn laws in China, so it was probably like, really lonely Chinese men looking for, well, there you go. Pet theory, at least for Bob. Alright, then there's also hidden servers. Hidden servers work by setting up entry points, or introduction points out there on some of the Tor nodes. And let's say Alice wants to talk to Bob's hidden service. Bob will advertise it in the database. Alice will hear about it someplace else, find the .onion address, and request it. And she's going to get this public key for getting to it, and an introductory point. The introductory points help these two negotiate a rendezvous point where they'll both meet up and exchange the data. So by doing this, they're both hidden from each other, but you can still set up a hidden service like a website inside the darknet. And Bob and Alice can use this circuit as normal to communicate. There's all sorts of different node types in Tor. One advantage of not having a camera on me is I can eat pizza. Client, that's in just a user. You're not passing everybody else's traffic. It's just you. There's relays, which will relay traffic to other people, but they're not an entry point necessarily or an exit point. I believe entry points would still be just considered relays, though. I may have to look into the terminology a little bit better. But one reason you might want to be a relay is you are helping the network be more anonymous because you're adding extra nodes that people have to hop through. But running a bridge can be a tricky matter because you're going to get a lot of complaints from people pirating stuff, or someone might say, hey, we think you downloaded child porn. It wasn't you, it was someone using your exit point, but that's still a pain in the ass. Or if, depending on what exit policies you set up, maybe someone might try to use it to spam. Though I believe the default exit policies do not allow port 25, so that probably isn't going to be as big a concern. But you have to deal with that kind of grief. So some people might choose to put up relays, but not bridges. Guard nodes are ones that are used to mitigate traffic analysis. They're basically more trusted nodes as your first hop, so that hopefully a bad adversary won't be both your first hop and your last hop, because that wouldn't be good for your anonymity, which is a hard word to say. Introduction points are for essentially allowing hidden services, or users to find hidden services for them to agree on a place to a rendezvous, and then a rendezvous point is where they actually start setting up the connection to pass data back and forth. And this is more or less what Tor looks like. There's a couple different ways of using Tor. If you're just going to use a client, there's the Tor browser bundle, and that's the recommended way of doing it, which I'll explain why here in a bit. But if you're setting your own server, you probably want to download the Vidalia bundle because you have a nice little GUI for configuring anything. Though on the Linux side, I'm going to be showing mostly command line because the Vidalia bundle seemed a little broken in the last time I tried it in Ubuntu. Some fixes that may work, but I haven't tested them all out quite yet. But you essentially just have a web browser that you set to use a local SOCKS proxy. In this case, 9050 on the local host. It's 9150 if you're using the Tor browser bundle. Advantage of the Tor browser bundle is they've done a lot of things like it's a portable version of Firefox you can carry around a thumb drive. They don't have hardly any plugins in it. They have some plugins, but the ones that for privacy like NoScript or the Tor button itself, things to hopefully keep you more private. You know, no Flash installed, no Skype plugins, none of that kind of stuff to help with your privacy. Also, it does a few things to things like your user agent string. So even if you're still from a Mac, if you're using the Tor browser bundle, it'll modify your user agent string so it says that you're on a fairly generic PC. There's actually another project out there called the Panopticlick that is all about how anonymous are you on the internet, how unique is your browser's user agent string. We're going to talk a little bit more about user agent strings here a little bit later. But the idea of Tor browser bundle is to add extra privacy by making a browser that doesn't send some of the end-user application data that would normally be there if you just decide to point to the SOCKS proxy with, let's say, Internet Explorer. There's all sorts of applications for Tor. If you want to get around and play with Tor and I2P, but you don't really want to install it, and you want to do it off from a live CD, check out the Amnesic Incognito Live System. That's almost as bad as Matilda as far as saying it. Essentially, it's a live CD that's meant for privacy. And you pull it out, and assuming you shut down the machine fast enough and the memory gets wiped, there's no trail left because you can do it all from like read-only media or your thumb drive. You do it from a thumb drive, this way you set up where it's going to be encrypted on the thumb drive. So it's basically designed for, I want to do something very private. I boot from this, I do my thing, I pull it out, I'm done. By the way, the reason I was talking about memory and so forth, it was the cold boot attack. If your machine is up and running, you can get into memory, dump that out, and stuff in memory is going to be decrypted. and things that are encrypted on the hard drive, well, the key for the hard drive is going to be someplace in that memory more than likely. So if someone can get to your machine fast enough, if it's still up and running, they can image memory and find out all sorts of data. If you've shut down the machine, if they can get to the memory fast enough, they can still pull stuff off it. Now, by fast enough, I mean chill it with a spray can and pull it out, and within 30 seconds get it someplace. So I suppose if someone really want to keep their stuff private, shut down the machine, hold it like this for like a minute, and if you can keep it that long, the data's probably going to be gone. This comes up a little bit later because those two people I mentioned that the cops busted, and they busted them in such a way that they could get to the laptop before the guy could shut it down. Tor to web. If you ever want to mess around with Tor hidden sites but don't want to install Tor, you can use this particular proxy, and what it will allow you to do is type in the onion address without the .onion .tor2web.org, and it will go to that site over the public internet. There used to be something like this for I2P called I2P.to, but it's been down since early last year, and they don't seem to be putting it back up. There's the Tor hidden wiki. Now, this one's going to be only used inside of Tor, but it has a bunch of information about Tor in general, a bunch of sites, and might be a good starting spot. Though last time I checked it, I think it was down. Scallion. You noticed most of those Tor hidden services, who's ever actually been to a Tor hidden service? You have, no one else has. Well, when I start showing them to you, you notice most of them are very random looking characters for the names, just alphabetic characters strung across. You can make your own hash collision and create a custom name. Like if you notice the one for SilkRoad, the first few letters are SilkRoad and the rest look pseudo-random. Onion Cat uses the local GPU to be able to brute force these hashes, and so you could make up your own name. I'm going to guess it's probably not as secure because it's not going to be as random, but it is out there. Also, Reddit Onions has a bunch of information about the Tor network. Now, Tor has several pros. If you can tunnel it through the SOX proxy, you can make it work on the protocol. So it's really easy to set up in that fashion. And at 3 levels of proxying on each node makes things very anonymous. Some of the downsides of it is slow. Though this complaint of mine played more many years ago than it does now, it actually seems pretty sprightly the last few times I've used it. I mean, I think the Tor network must have grown quite a bit. Another concern is how much do you trust your exit nodes, because the people at the exit nodes can sniff whatever protocol you're actually using. So there's actually been a time in the past where researchers have set up their own Tor exit nodes and just sniff traffic, and they'd find like emails from embassy people who were trying to escape surveillance at the local country they're in, and they were doing that, but they were using like POP3 or other unencrypted protocols, and the people were sitting there going, oh, I got an exit point, and I have a bunch of ambassadors' email. Lovely. Also, the semi-fixed infrastructure is sometimes a problem. I mentioned those directory servers that you have to query to be able to find other nodes. Well, back in 2009, the Great Firewall of China blocked those relays, and that kind of screwed over Tor, except for people who knew about bridges. And I don't know if I mentioned bridge nodes in that previous slide. A bridge node is essentially a relay, but it's not advertised. So there's no single place where you can go and find a list of all of them. So you can go out to the Tor site and request, okay, can you give me a couple of them? And you can use those that are not known about to relay your traffic and get past it if they're trying to block the directory servers or block known Tor entry points. It's also fairly easy to tell someone's using it from the server side. Let me see if I can show you. If you notice, I visited with the Tor browser bundle here, and it says that I am a Tor user. I do that based on querying Tor's directory in a way using DNS and saying, oh, you belong to a Tor exit point. I can put this new icon here. If I was using I2P only, you'd see a different little logo up there of the I2P man. All right, what does the traffic look like? Well, a local traffic, it's generally going to be port 9050 for the SOX traffic, and then there's a control port for controlling Tor, which is 9051. Add 100 to each of those, you're talking about the Tor browser bundle. The reason they do this for different ports is they want people to be able to have, let's say, a standard install of Tor on the machine for doing hidden services, but be able to run the Tor browser bundle at the same time. This way there's not a port conflict. And really, you do want to run the Tor browser bundle because it's just going to be a lot more secure because they've done things to protect you on the application level. Oh, by the way, these slides are already up on my website if you need to get them. Okay, a little bit about I2P now. I2P is the Invisible Internet Project in a nutshell. This is how it is compared to Tor. Why? Well, the developers, it was started by a guy named Jay Random. That was obviously not his name his mama gave him, but he disappeared for a while, and it was thought he was going to come back, but no one's heard from him since. And the thought is maybe, at least one of my friends who's involved with I2P thinks that maybe the guy passed away, maybe he went and had medical problems, and then never could come back. But he was anonymous, so no one knows whatever happened to the guy. The guy that's currently in charge of the project is a ZZZ, who I've met up with at DEF CON before, a good guy. Oh, he wants I2P stickers later on. Remind me, I got tons of stickers for them. It acts as an anonymizing layer on top of the internet, kind of like a Tor, but its focus is more on hidden services. There's only a few exit points, and actually really only one that's ever really used normally in the default install as far as I recall, to the public internet. Its focus is pretty much all that hidden service type activity. And one of its advantages is that everybody on it, as soon as you join by default, you are a relay. So you're relaying traffic for everybody else. This has the advantage of, first of all, spreading the traffic over more nodes, and two, since other people's traffic are passing through you, and you're passing your own traffic, it's hard for an adversary to know what's yours and what someone else's. So correlation attacks could possibly be a little bit harder. Also, an advantage it has, and I'm talking this in pros and cons, it uses a distributed hash table for called NetDB for keeping track of who all the nodes are out there. So it doesn't have that central directory server that could be hit and to take out the network. Now, the problem with this is when you first install it, it does have a certain seeds so it can connect into this distributed hash table. So if someone took out all those seeds just before you downloaded it, yeah, I2P wouldn't function. But if you've had been connected to those seeds just long enough to get more, then you can stay in the network. So it's a distributed hash table, and you can just stay there. Distributed hash tables are kind of a weird concept. You really maybe that'd be a class unto itself. But it's very decentralized. And the way it works is you have in tunnels and out tunnels. And let's say here's Alice, here's Charlie, Bob, and you pass traffic out for your out tunnel, but you can decide how many layers your out tunnel is, and you've directed at someone's in tunnel, and you can also choose. They can choose how many hops their in tunnel is. So let's say you want something to be really fast, but you don't care about privacy. You might make only 1 hop or 0 hops. If you want to be sure that it gets mixed in with a lot of other traffic, you'd make it longer number of hops. So you have unidirectional connections, tunnels in and tunnels out. Information is distributed via that distributed hash table, like I mentioned before, called NetDB. It also uses layered encryption, and it focuses on anonymous services. So an example of, they call the other thing garlic routing. And I think I got this image a little bit wrong. At one time, there's something called a mixnet, where you basically take traffic from multiple people, throw it all together, maybe delay it, then throw it out in different ways, and that stops correlation attacks because your traffic is mixed with someone else's traffic. So you can't really say, this person sent an encrypted packet here at this time, it came out here at this time. Even though it's encrypted, it has certain size characteristics and timing characteristics that make me think it's the same person. With a mixnet, yours is getting mixed in with everybody else's, and that becomes much more confusing. It'd be like we all mail an envelope to somebody, someone puts them all in one big bag, carries them someplace else, then distributes that into other sub-bags and sends it other places. It just makes correlation attacks a lot harder. And now, originally I thought that the onion routing worked by taking everybody's messages and including them in cloves and sending them in bags like that. Apparently not quite like that, but in theory it could be redesigned to be like that, I understand the way the infrastructure is set up. So, possibility. Oh, it uses also at least 3 levels of encryption. There's encryption between each one of the hops. Like here's a let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 hops. There's encryption between each one of those hops. There's an encryption all throughout the one tunnel, and then there's encryption end to end between the person and, let's say, the EAP site. So it's using layered encryption like Tor is also uses a combination of LGMAL and AES. And I'm sure someone who is big on I2P is going to correct the video later on. So watch the YouTube comments for where I got that wrong. And essentially what it looks like is, well, again, a web browser, and you point it to, well, actually, it doesn't look just like a web browser. You set up tunnels, and you point whatever application you want to a tunnel. Now, there just happens to be a tunnel that by default services web traffic. And it does certain things to your traffic. Like it changes your user agent string to make it not be your normal user agent string. And everybody has the same one on I2P. Now, last I checked, it's still a really old version of Firefox that they're using as the user agent string. I think it was Firefox. I have to go check again. And they'll know you're using I2P because anybody that's using that older browser on the actual internet now isn't hopefully very likely. But you look at all the other I2P traffic users. You can also set up your own tunnels on the local host that tunnel any other kind of traffic. Like you can make your own SOCKS tunnel if you want, or your own telnet tunnel for whatever reason you might want to set up. The way hidden services work on I2P or these tunnels is you get a address that actually looks like this. That would be a massive pain to actually memorize. Generally, what you'll end up having is something easier to write down and give to other people. You either use SUSE DNS, which you realize DNS is it hasn't always been there. It used to be back in the day, the way names were worked out was just a host file on the local machine. You can still do that, but it was basically a text file that had the IP address and the name of the machine. And this had to be kept for every machine on the freaking internet that you wanted to contact. SUSE DNS still works that way because, well, convenience and anonymity are sometimes at odds with each other. So you can register a name and get it into certain jump services and certain places where people can subscribe to these host files that automatically download other people's names. The downside to that is you gotta trust the people who are distributing those lists. And also, well, in this case, it wasn't so much a problem with SUSE DNS, it was me screwing up. I created irongeek.I2P, and I went ahead and advertised it out there and got in a bunch of those lists. And then I nuked to rebuild my machine. I did not save my private key, so I lost that. So that's why I'm irongeeks.I2P now instead. You can also use base32 addresses, and base32 addresses look something like that big, long, ugly string right there. Okay, I2P pros and cons. Pros? Well, a lot of supported applications. I don't think I had a slide in there, but didn't mention it all. I'm built into it. You have IRC listening. You have well, HTTP. You have BitTorrent client built in. All sorts of things like that. And there's other applications out there as well, which I'll cover a little bit later on. You can create a SOCKS 5 hidden service. Like for instance, I've made a SSH session I can get to via I2P. Each site seems somewhat faster than hidden services. This was more true a couple years ago for me. Recently, Tor's hidden services have seemed to speed up a whole lot. So this may not be as true as it once was. Now, one of the advantages of I2P is everybody relays by default. So that means the traffic was more shared across everybody. So that might be one of the reasons why it seemed faster at one time. Also, no central point of failure. So China couldn't block it in the same way that it blocked the Tor directory servers. The one downside, I suppose, the one thing they could do, I suppose, is if they found all the ones that are in the install file and blocked all the ones in there, and when you first install it, then you wouldn't be able to connect to the network because you couldn't find any new nodes. But then the people just release a new installer. And once you're attached to the network, you can just keep getting new nodes. Cons. Limited out proxies. So if you're interested in the public internet, it's not really as good a choice as Tor is. And civil attacks may be a little bit more likely because of distributed hash tables. Alright, civil attacks, and this is purely conjecture here. Civil attacks exist from the name of a book, I believe it was, about this character named Sybil who had multiple personalities. The idea of a civil attack is you own enough nodes in the network, you can influence the network. Remember I mentioned having an entry point and an exit point? That's somewhat similar to a civil attack. But the idea of a civil attack is if you own enough nodes in the network, you can influence the network. I have more on it in a different presentation I'll link to at the end of the talk. All right, to do a little interlude so that this isn't as boring, I'm going to talk a little bit about a case example. Who's heard of this guy? John, you trying to get off work by calling in a bomb threat? All right. This is the suspect, Eldo Kim. By the way, all these stories are as best as I can understand it from reading various articles. In this case, I linked to the article down at the bottom of this slide, which is available on the internet. But apparently he wanted to get out of a final on December 16th, so he's alleged to have made a bomb threat via email. Well, he was using a tool called Guerrilla Mail, and it allows you to send emails, and he accessed it over Tor, so it didn't have his actual campus IP address, but it did include the IP address of whoever did contact it, which was a Tor exit point. It's easy to find out whether or not something's a Tor exit point, so they started looking around for anybody who was connecting to a Tor relay at that time. Well, there was only so many people on campus that day who were connecting to Tor. Tor is popular, but it's not so popular they couldn't trace it down. It puts the X-originating header inside of Guerrilla Mail, so actually go out and try Guerrilla Mail sometime. You'll see your IP addresses right there. In this case, it was the Tor exit point, but they figured out it was Tor. They figured out who all accessed Tor on that day, and because of the timing of it, they knew it was him. Or had a good idea it was him. And if he'd used the bridge, they wouldn't have been able to do that because the bridge wouldn't necessarily have been advertised. They wouldn't necessarily know that node they're connecting to was Tor. What they could have did deep packet analysis, but somehow I doubt the university was doing that. Lesson learned from this one, don't be the only person using Tor on a monitored network like a campus network. Also, use a bridge, and correlation attacks are a bitch. Also, from what I read, the guy basically admitted to it, and they may not have had any more evidence on that other than he had access to it around the same time, but he admitted to it. So if he had held out, I don't know if he would have got away with it or not. Okay, I've talked about correlation attacks. I'm going to give you another example of that. Let's say someone sends 5 megabits of data in one part of the network and then sees 8 megabits come back down. Well, let's say these two people are colluding. These both were evil nodes. You can tell they're evil because they got the goatee. If it sees 8 megas coming back after 5 megas goes out and it sees the same pattern here and similar timings, well, you can kind of figure out who's who. That's one of the things that's very important to make sure that your entry point and your exit point aren't the same person. And that's why Tor uses those guard nodes I mentioned. There's also simple timing attacks. And I believe one of the tools that the NSA was trying to develop, I want to say Majol worked this way. How do you pronounce Thor's hammer? Anybody? Mjolnir. I can't say shit. Say it loud. Mjolnir. All right, Mjolnir. I think it was something like this. You could watch the simple timings like I did in the previous attack, or you could try to DOS to affect traffic. Let's say, ooh, that node I know is involved in it. Let me DOS that one, and if I can see the pattern I'm inducing in the traffic, maybe I can figure out what's going on. If it's passing through me, I can pulse it myself and try to add some kind of tag to it based on timing and such. And I believe Mjolnir worked that way. Just change the load in the path as well is no way of possibly causing that kind of induced pattern. All right. Actually, let's go on. Yes. Yes, you can, but the point of Tor is to be low latency. Buffering, actually, that's where I was talking about mixed nets. The way those should work, and those mailers work like this, because email, if your email gets there 10 minutes later, you probably don't really care. The way a mixed net works is it's sort of say, okay, I got some data. I got some more data from someone else. I got some more data from someone else. All right, I'm going to send out some of it now. I may send out some more of it later, or I may just send it all at once. But because it's coming at different times and they're all going out at different times, and going out to package stuff together, it's hard to correlate. But see, you can't do that and still keep low latency. And if you, for email, that's awesome. Those like mixed nets for email. And you haven't used them, but that do just what you're talking about for those reasons. However, how would you like to web browse and have to wait 5 minutes for the page to return? So it's a quality of service issue. So for some things, yes, that's awesome. Unfortunately, for web traffic, not so much. We're going to talk a little bit about installing and getting around in Tor next. But do people want to continue right now, or want to go to break? All right, let's just continue. Installing and getting around in I2P and Tor. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to install it on Windows and Linux. And since I'm lazy and also prone to typos, I'm actually going to be copying and pasting from a website. The nice thing about this is it makes life easier for you too, as long as you, well, trust me. So we're going to install I2P in Windows. And if you go out to my website, I have put up Tor I2P workshop notes. And in here, I have everything set up where you can download the tools. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to not install it on this machine. I actually have a VM set up that I want to install it on. So here's a VM I have, and I'm going to download it and install it inside this VM. Assuming I didn't screw something up. No internet access. That's not positive. Okay. It doesn't like the bridge. Alright, I'm going to try natting and see if that makes it happy. Let's say public network. Alright, let me try that again. I'm going to download a few things to this machine. We'll hide him for the time being. I like Mr. Clippy. Okay. I'm going to download I2P off download here. Depending on what platform you have, get what's appropriate. We're not going to use, well, for Windows and Mac. For Linux, we're going to use something different. I'm going to download this package. And it's going to start in 5 seconds. Come on, do your thing. And I'll save that to default. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and get my stuff for Tor as well. So I'm going to go to this Tor download, Microsoft Windows, and I'm going to download both the Tor browser bundle, and I'm going to go ahead and get the relay bundle as well. Remember how I mentioned you have relays, exits, and bridges, where they have bundles that are pre-made with all those configurations are in place. So you can save a little time that way. Okay, hopefully those. Okay, those are all downloading. And I'm going to back up and download. It does not seem to want to remember that setting. I'm also going to download Pigeon Portable, because we might use that later on. There's all sorts of IRC services and so forth. Here's one of the things that got me about Anonymous. All these people who are attaching to these IRC servers over the public IP address, and yeah, they had some anonymizers as far as, you couldn't right click and go info because people were, or I can't remember the terminology for it, masking. But if you were the actual IRC operator, you could see their IP addresses. However, I2P and Tor both have completely serviceable IRC servers inside of them. And if people have been using that instead, something like what Ryan Cleary, I think it was Ryan Cleary was the guy's name, what he did, where he was one of the operators, but he got pissed off at other people in the group and decided to de-anonymize all the people who were using his server. That couldn't have happened. So I'm not sure why more people weren't using I2P and Tor's functionality for IRC back in that time. Also, right here you'll see I have the slides if anybody actually wants the slides. So I got that all downloading, and we'll go ahead and install I2P in Windows. Essentially, we just say run it. This requires Java 1.5. You tell me I don't have Java on this machine? Hold on a second. Okay, apparently I thought it had Java already installed in this VM, and I'll go ahead and download it. Java is such a huge pain in security's ass. Because it's had so many vulnerabilities as of recent, or well, so maybe since its inception, that you have to patch it. And now they're trying to do things to make it more secure, but it's breaking all the applications. So if you do patch it, you break things, but you kind of have to patch it. It's just a nasty problem. Oh, yeah, I have some Cisco AnyConnect is not a happy camper. Say you don't want to install any of this crap. Next. I'm glad to hear at iOS we have massive bandwidth. Actually, one time we had a gigabit out. It was capable. It was 10 gigabit technically, but all the equipment at the edge could only do a gigabit. Is it now 10 gigabit total?
I don't think so. Not that I've heard of. I know that they. It might be. Now that I think about that, down at the water tower they had that issue, but I think they upgraded it. But it's not technically 10 because stuff gets eat up on it real quick for security cameras and all this stuff.
Alright, now that I got Java installed, hopefully, I can now install I2P. I'll go ahead and say English, because if you speak a different language, feel free to choose it. We're going to go next, because, you know, we trust the license agreement, right? I'm going to install this as a Windows service so it starts up automatically. There's ways of doing that manually as also, but I'm not going to in this case. I installed in program files, that's fine. The target will be created. Okay. And shortcuts, I'm just going to take the default of all users. Next, yes, next, yes, pretty much. And we'll install I2P on this machine. And that's done. Now, if we actually wanted to use I2P, what we would do is we go into Tools, Options. Let's see, Advanced helps you don't accidentally get rid of windows you mean to have up. Tools, Options, Advanced, Network, Settings, and you'd manually set it to point to the local host. So in this case, 127.0.0.1 and 4444 as the HTTP proxy. Now for HTTPS, and you do want to put this in, you set it up to be 4445. And you do want to set it up, otherwise someone will try to de-anonymize you by sending you an SSL encrypted link. And since you don't have that set up as a proxy, it'll bypass using HTTP one, and you'll reveal who you are. So you want to make sure you set up both of those. And now, hopefully, I might be able to whip stuff out. Let me first actually look at my console. I'm going to go to the local host, 127.0.0.1. Actually, technically 127 anything. A friend asking me if I was going to Richo's tonight, and I already told him in a message that I couldn't because of the class. Well, on break, I'll text him. Okay, here's the router console. I can go here and click on I2P and control some things. Also, you'll see a bunch of sites down here that you can mess around with. Like I could try to go out to the I2P forums, which are in here. Yeah, there we go. And this is an I2P site, which hopefully I would be able to get to, but it's not a happy camper right now. So let me go back in and look at my settings. That looks right. That looks right. Refusing connections. At least now it looks like it's doing something. One of the problems with I2P, that distributed nature, it takes a while to get integrated into the network, to learn paths, to build tunnels. So it can be a little bit slower than Tor in that sense when you're first starting out. I'm going to switch over and show how to do that same thing in Linux. In Linux, the easiest way to do it, there is a package you can download and run whenever you want, but it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt to use. So instead, what we do on Linux is we use apt. And I'm going to copy and paste these commands because that's just easier. Instead of doing sudo, I'm going to, which by the way, I feel like a dumbass because I always refer to sudo as super user do, but it's actually substitute user. Alright, let's go into accessories, terminal, do sudo -i, and you can just keep issuing commands as root. Oh, is that view? Let me see. I thought there was a increased size. Alright, well, hopefully that's mostly readable. I'm going to start pasting commands. I'm going to nano my sources, and I'm going to add some new sources to apt. How many people who use Linux regularly? Well, this is a Linux. This Linux distribution is Debian based, and Debian uses apt as its package manager, which is really nice. And everything's usually configured, everything you need right there from the start, but not so much in this since we have to add some stuff for I2P. So I'm going to paste in these I2P sources. Control X, yes. Close that out. And then I'm going to issue a few more commands. I'm just going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to issue them all at one time because I'm lazy like that. We're going to get the file. Now, this is like a key so that we can know we're getting packages from the properly signed ones that the I2P developers put out there. Otherwise, we might update one time, someone's doing some man-in-the-middle attack, and we put in the wrong version. Something that someone doesn't like us puts out there. That wouldn't be good at all. So we're going to do that. We're going to add that key for apt. We'll get the repository, update everything, and then we'll install I2P and keyring. The reason I love apt, normally you just type apt-get install and name the package, and it just installs it for you, which is awesome. Alright, let me change Windows back to there. Let's issue that command. Paste those in. And it's still trying to resolve it. Hold up. You know what? I bet you I have the exact same problem on here. It's not recognizing which adapter to send things out of. So let me go in here to manage, let's see, removable devices, network adapter, settings. Alright, we'll set that to NAT. Alright. Let me try, once that gets it, good. Let me try reissuing all those commands to get it to run. Download some stuff and come on, do your thing. Okay. Any key controls C to cancel adding it. Now I want to add it. Enter. Adds the key. And now I think there was some commands it missed. So that was when it was adding the key. Let me go back to my notes and make sure I think from this line down, really I should be doing these one by one. Okay, that was the one that was already done. There we go. Gonna update, get new packages, and then hopefully the next line we can actually go ahead and install I2P. All this is out in the notes, and I'll say yes to that. And in theory, I2P would be installed shortly, but it's gonna take a while to get the JDK and all that crud. So I'm gonna go back to here, and it didn't find the following destination: form.I2P. Like I said, it has to get integrated into the network before it can do its thing. Which is no reason why I set up another box, that one over there, that we can connect to if anybody actually wants to mess with I2P in short order. So actually, let me go collect the IP address of that box. This one's been sitting here for the last, well, over an hour. hopefully it'll work okay.
I think you're up over here.
What was that? Oh, good. Okay, maybe I don't need to do that. If you all installed it, if you want to mess with, well, I'm going to do it anyway, just so that we can show you. And if anybody wants to mess with I2P but don't want to wait for it to bootstrap, instead of connecting to IU, I'm going to connect to Darknet. Dark pass is the password. Yeah, we're fine with that. Okay. And I believe that was 192.168.138. I've actually set that one up to where we can remotely connect to it and use it as our general proxy. So I could go in here, go to Options, Settings, and unless I screwed something up, now I usually do this at home, so I only have one machine running that needs to run I2P, and I can use it as my gateway for the entire network. And I'll show you a little bit about how to do that later on. But now let's see if we can go someplace else. We can use a jump service to find it. And it's still waiting. And we'll come back to that in a bit. But you saw how the forum came up. And now we also have I2P installed in Linux on here, but we're not going to bother to show it. It's basically going to look the same. The browser's the browser's the browser. And here I'm basically showing the standard method for installing I2P on Linux. I prefer just to do it via app. It just seems easier. The app method, while it's a lot more commands, once you have it installed, it's updating itself. It's taking care of itself. It's already running in the background, and that's all nice. Ooh, actually, there is one step in the Linux process I did not do, and that is configure it to automatically start. So dpackage, reconfigure, plow I2P, -plow I2P, and if I do that, I can actually tell it to start at boot. And we can run it as I2P service, that's fine. 128 megs of memory, that's fine. Take the defaults, and now we'll start up I2P, and we're good as gold. Go back here. Come on, do your thing. Okay, running I2P, if you were doing it the normal way, you would just have it in your own bin and run it by using I2P router start. But since we're doing it via apt and it's already started as a service, we can skip that. If we wanted to configure it, I'd already showed you how, but essentially you point to the local host and 444 for HTTP and 4445 for HTTPS. And you may want to note the port that the machine's on. You can check out the UDP port here, and you can go into your firewall and allow TCP and UDP for that port in. By default, the TCP port it listens on and the UDP port it listens and talks on is the same number. But you can do that by going in and clicking on I2P, and it should be underneath of I think maybe it's click here about the network. Yeah, and scroll up. You notice this is not the same port that was in my slide. It randomly chooses this port. Now, if you actually look at the type of packets that are out there, the size of them and so forth, my understanding there's still ways of telling it's I2P. But since it's using both UDP and TCP and it's choosing a random port, it's a little bit hard to find. Makes it at least a little bit harder. And you can also change it if you want, but you might want to adjust your firewall rules to allow that through. Now it uses, I believe, UDP hole punching, so it can get out. I believe it does. And regardless, as far as the tunnels are concerned, if you're using TCP, it can still build through a NAT box by establishing the connection itself. But that's up and running. And again, to get to the console to control I2P, it's on port 7657. Yeah, that's why you went and showed you the firewall settings. You just may want to adjust those on your firewall to allow that in. Just allow connections to work a little bit better. Those are the proxy settings. Already showed that. Oh, this is what I didn't show before, and I probably should use now. These are the DNS settings. Remember how I said you could subscribe to different people's host file? This is a common set that you might want to use. I'm just going to copy and paste those in and configure my machine to use it. Actually, it's faster to go this way. Instead of configuring it on this one, though, I want to configure it on my other one. My one I said all y'all could use because it's already integrated into the network somewhat. So 192.168.138. Thank you. Huh. It's not liking that. Okay. Something is acting foul on the network, so I'm just going to do it on my local host /DNS, and inside of here you can go to subscriptions, add those in, remove all the extra funky line returns that I had put in there. Actually, you know what? I think it automatically does that if I do a reload. Yeah, there we go. And now hopefully it's going to integrate and that will all function for me here in a bit. But I'm going to leave that running. I would do the same thing to the Linux side if I wanted to. But now I'll have a whole bunch of people's lists, and it won't have to use those jump services to look up names. Hopefully in a bit it'll know imgeeks.I2P without any extra prompting. Alright, installing Tor on Windows. We're going to cover that in let's do a break first, and then we'll come back and do that. How's that sound? So let's take 10 minutes. Let's be back at like 7:17. Is that good?
Have some more pizza.
Section spells is this last section. If you see what you think you can do, talk to it.
Hi folks. Okay, we're going to start this back up. Now we're going to go into installing Tor. We do I2P first because I2P takes a little bit of time to bootstrap. So the reason we're doing it first. We're going to grab the Tor browser bundle, which we already did. I showed you that previously. You can get it from these locations, and the Tor Vidalia bundle, and continue from there. On the Linux side, we can install it by just doing apt-get install Vidalia. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Apt-get install. I always have to make sure my spelling is right. Crap. You know what? I don't know how to spell the onion.
Onion? O-N-I-O-N.
Saying it's like the city in Georgia wouldn't help, would it?
Hmm? Yeah, just do it the lazy man way.
That's not the lazy man way, that's the ingenious way. That's why they built it.
Wait. Okay, I did. That's not good.
Said no. It worked for me like 2 minutes ago.
Alright, let me try doing an apt-get update. Yeah, and see, I know I've done the exact same thing from this version of Ubuntu. Okay, we're not going to use Vidalia apparently on. All right, let's do this. Apt cache. I think that's what it's search. It does know about Tor. Did they rename the package on me and not tell me? Okay. Huh. Something is definitely astray here, guys. You said it worked for you on your machine?
Yeah, with Vidalia, but I just installed 13 point wherever, so Ubuntu 13, and then I was able to, when I did apt-get for Tor, it also found something. So,
But it's not working for me, but it is working for you. I'm gonna come back to that in just a second. Let's go ahead and mess around with Okay.
is that the Ubuntu one or is that the Debian one that you have on?
Oh, this is Ubuntu.
Okay.
Let me see. I find that seriously mysterious.
Mysterious and mysterious.
Sorry about this. It's a little bit sidetracked here for a second. Let's see. Let's look at my sources again. Helps if you actually spell out everything. Okay, that got installed. Don't believe orders should matter whatsoever. But I noticed when I was doing my practice. Did you install? I don't believe order matters, but did you put yours at the beginning or in the file?
I put it at the beginning.
And yours works. Okay, let me try one more time. It's not. Huh. Well, something got screwed up along the way, so I'm just going to do the Windows solution for right now and come back to that. Let's go to our Windows install and try to install Tor there. There's two different ways we can go about this. We can use the browser bundle, which basically just has a portable version of Firefox we can use. We can put it out on the desktop, do an install. Finish. And we now have a portable version of Firefox in here that we can run. It uses the, I believe it's the, they used to use Vidalia packaged in here. Now it's its own Tor launcher. But the first time you run it, it's going to ask you about connecting. I'm going ahead and say that it's not censored. If I chose censored, that would be for adding bridges and so forth. I'm going to say connect, and it's go out to the directory server, find nodes it's going to attach to, and then here shortly we'll be able to do our thing. I'm also going to, though, while that's running, that's all I need to do to get up and running in Tor once it finally starts up. I'm also going to install a more permanent install of Tor on this machine with the Vidalia relay bundle. But I'll do that here in just a second. This is almost finished. Okay, and we are up and running in Tor. And we'll visit some sites here in a bit. But actually, let's just go out to irongeek.com and see what it shows us. You see it replaced the image there that's normally a little penguin with the onion logo. Alright, I'm going to try one more time to get into my broken Linux install. And someone was giving me some serious shit online once because I was doing an install in Windows. It's like, well, you can't make it secure in Windows. Well, it's more of a pain in the ass from the standpoint of it's going to be a more commonly attacked platform, but please just shut the hell up. I'm hoping as many people as I can with this. There's some serious fanboys out there, and granted, I'd say if you're running a server and all that, I'd definitely go with the Linux option for that. If you're using the Tor browser bundle, the one advantage of not using Windows is you probably wouldn't be as targeted. If someone comes up with an exploit, it's probably going to be more likely to be one for Windows. Though Firefox has been largely pretty good about keeping things up and secure. Actually, one of those security guys is local to us. Curtis.
Although I believe the Tor browser bundle doesn't keep up to date with the latest Firefox.
Yeah, it does sometimes trail behind, and sometimes that can bite people in the ass.
I think it was this past week, or Technica had the article on the FBI's copy of Tor Mail.
Yeah, I'm be covering a little bit more about that here in a bit. Well, I am sincerely disappointed that I cannot show you everything about configuring Tor on here. So let me see if I can do something. Because something is way screwed up with app right now. So I'm going to see if I can SSH as a worm at 192.168.1.138. SSH, not sh. Yes. By the way, this is the first time I've connected. I'm going to say yes to that key right now. If you're trying to set up a hidden service as SSH and you get that message after you've already connected once, don't say yes. Okay, once Tor is installed, there's various things you can edit on it. And I'm going to show a little bit about setting up a hidden service in Tor later on. And I'm going to use that little box there instead since my Ubuntu install here is all screwed up. I'll do most of the demo in Windows, but a browser is a browser is a browser is a browser pretty much. But yep, here I am. I'm in Tor. Everything is working. I can even go to some I2P site, EAP site, getting my terminology messed up. Some hidden services inside of Tor. Now, a lot of hidden services that you're normally visiting are web browsers, but it doesn't have for websites, but they don't necessarily have to be websites. So let's find one. Here's the Tor directory. Let's see what's out there. I'm gonna open up in new tabs. Sometimes these sites go up and down. I'm gonna open up core. Let's check out the hidden wiki, see if it's even up. Oh, SilkRoad 2 and SilkRoad forums. Who wants to buy some drugs? As I say, there's 2 law enforcement agents in the room. Yeah. Actually, to tell you the truth, I have very libertarian philosophies when it comes to the drugs. I don't really care that they're selling that stuff out there. Although, unfortunately, with drug laws being what they are, and you can't actually go to law enforcement to correct problems if you have problems, it means that they have a tendency to enforce rules of their own, which means more unseemly behavior than drug use, such as taking out hits on people, like Ross supposedly did. I would say alleged. It seems pretty damn firm, but I'll say alleged, like Ross allegedly did, because apparently, what was it? How many people did he have hits out on?
I know.
At least 2.
2, yeah. And the guy took a picture of the guy, went to the guy and talked to him, faked the hit or something like. I don't know. So much of it is anonymous and wherever it's really hard to tell what's true. It's hard to believe you can't find an honest hitman who takes bitcoins.
Yeah, yeah. And with Photoshop, who can tell anymore? Alright, this site is not responding for me right now. Notice how this one looks mostly random. And that one's also not responding. However, the hidden wiki kind of sort of did. And it's directing for no one. Here is the SilkRoad. Unfortunately, the SilkRoad is under a massive load. This is a SilkRoad 2. The first one got busted. Someone else set one up that looks exactly the same. Someone else is using the name Dread Pirate Roberts and is running his own. And notice how this one's not completely random. Remember that tool I mentioned earlier that you can use, a scallion, for making your own vanity name? Well, these people have created one that says SilkRoad as the first few characters. I've generated ones that are Iron Geek. Here's another one that's a .onion address. This is a forum system. And actually, you'll probably find some really good darknet information on here, because a lot of people are talking about how to stay anonymous while using Bitcoin and so forth. Bitcoin in and of itself isn't exactly completely anonymous because of how it has to track the chains through the internet. However, there's something called a Tumblr, which does anonymize it. And I don't know enough about it to explain it because I haven't looked into it enough. There's a guy who gave a talk at B-Sides, Delaware, named Bob Rise, I believe. I asked if his wife was named Alice. Apparently she's not. Bob gave a great talk though on Bitcoin. If you ever actually want to see that, I have it on my website someplace, and I just stabbed myself with a pin or something in this chair. But yeah, here's a few sites, and unfortunately the SilkRoad is massively overused right now, so no drugs for you right now. Sorry. Dang. We'll come back later. Oh, in Windows, we'll also go install the Vidalia. Oh, there we go. Well, let me see if I can get in. And now everybody knows my handle on SilkRoad. Silkworm. Get it? I need a name. Oh, and the capture went away. You bastards. The site is not about selling drugs. It's apparently using them. All right, PPDHBC. Go. And we'll let you run. We'll come back to you in a second. In the meantime, we'll go install the more permanent install because we also want to set up services later on. So next install, next, run installed components now, and we'll let that run. And remember, it's listening on a different set of ports. The browser bundle uses 9150 and 9151, and regular Tor Vidalia install is 9050 and 9051. By default. Okay, got that going. And we're finally in here. Let's see, prescriptions, stimulants, what else can we get? Computer equipment. That's, we can buy some stuff from there. Jewelry, hardware, writing, erotica. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that one because I'm not sure what exactly they have to sell in there. Then again, they're selling computers, which I'm assuming is legit, and alcohol. Art, not sure about. All right, let's go into.
When you say computers being legit, they're probably not legit.
Well, it might be stolen. It might be stolen.
And just because the law enforcement guy in the room feels like he needs to say something at this point, you can accidentally go to a site where it has some pictures, but you don't want to search for terms involving child porn and stuff like that because you may come across it accidentally. But think of child porn as a brick of cocaine. If you pick it up and check it out and someone sees you, that could be really bad. But if you're walking down the street and you trip over it, you could get a little bit on you. So if you are on there, stay away from it the best you can. You may actually come across it because there's a lot of it out there.
And sometimes it's just mixed in there with other stuff. But yeah, especially the chans. The chans more than anything. Most of the sites I've been to that weren't chans, you had to be purposely searching for it. If that Bob had been to, you had to be purposely searching for it. To be able to encounter, but those chans where it's just going to show.
Yeah, they put it there for shock value, so you're scrolling through, looking at whatever else.
Yeah, Bob once saw a picture of himself because he wrote an article on Darknets. Right next, he's like, picture of him, picture of some child porn here and here. I'm like, that's just freaking disturbing. Okay, and staff is updating the server again. Okay, yep. I don't think this is going to be nearly as profitable as SilkRoad 1 was because they can't seem to keep the box up and running. Alright, let's go back. But we got Vidalia installed. This is how you would normally do it on Linux. However, Linux is being a little bitch right now. To set up a proxy connection, we're going to use a Tor browser bundle for all of our connections out, but you would just go in and set up a SOCKS proxy. But there's one important thing that you need to make sure that you do, and that is because SOCKS proxies normally resolve with socks, normally your browser is going to resolve IP addresses locally and then pass the IP address to socks. That gives away who you are, because anybody that's sitting there sniffing the traffic can see that you're making a request for something.I2P or something.onion. So the DNS service you're connected to can figure out who you are. I have a slide on that in a bit. So there's a setting inside of Firefox that you want to make sure you set. This one right here, network proxy socks remote DNS equal to true. And by default in Firefox, this is not set to true. What this does is it says resolve the IP addresses using your remote socks. That way it's all turned over socks. Otherwise, your local ISP or whoever runs your DNS servers is going to see that you're typing in irongeeks.I2P or gobbledygook.onion. So I guess if you want to capture a bunch of technologically illiterate or just unthoughtful people, if you talk to local ISPs who's been querying .onions and .I2Ps, you'd probably find some information. Okay, let's I was actually going to show how to get to that. That configuration, about colon.config, go in there. I said I'll be careful. And there's a couple of different things you can set up in here. I believe that particular one. Let me go back in here and check out what it, proxy socks remote DNS. Yeah, see it's set to true in the Tor browser bundle. By default in Firefox, it's not set to true. At least not last time I checked. Oh, there's other things you can adjust in here, like even if this was using a different browser, if I did agent, that's the user agent it's claiming to be using. Actually, I think this is the one it actually is, and this is the override. So it tries to claim to be something that's fairly generic and common out there. But that's the basics of installing it. Now, DNS links I mentioned a little bit before. Here's the way it works. If I didn't have that particular setting made inside of Firefox, what would happen is every time I go to irongeeks.I2P or some string.onion, it's going to query my normal DNS servers, and that DNS server, he won't see my traffic, but he'll know where I've been going. Alright, we're going to set up Foxy Proxy for first use, and hopefully I remember how to do all this. I have instructions on my website, but Foxy Proxy is useful in that it allows you to configure proxies to say, if the string looks like this, do X. If it looks like this, do Y. So you can choose which proxy to use depending on what you want to accomplish. So I'm going to set up one that takes all .I2P sites and sends it to I2P and takes everything else and sends it through Tor. So let's see if I can actually get that to function. Actually, I wonder if I provided a link on my notes. There's always something you forget when you're about to do a class. No, I should have included that in the links. Okay, let me go and, oh, actually I did. Control F, Foxy Proxy. Yeah, I'm all about the copying and pasting to save time and errors. So let's go out and get Foxy Proxy. And hopefully we can get that installed and configured. I don't guarantee you the first time I configure it, I'm going to screw it up. Come on, continue your download. Do your thing. Allow to install. Install. I do believe I said install. Just in case. I may have accidentally clicked in the wrong. Restart now. Good. Now I have Foxy Proxy installed. And I'll show you how to configure Foxy Proxy so you can send all traffic to Tor except for, well, local traffic and also anything you want to send to I2P. So here's our Foxy proxy. Let's go in. I'm going to say no because I don't really need Foxy proxy to do anything else at this point. I'm going to go to options. Here's the default. I'm going to see that default is direct internet connection only. I'm going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to, I'll leave the color blue. I'm going to set the proxy manually, and I'm going to point it to 127.0.0.1 and port 9150. If you were doing this for the Vidalia install, you would do 9050 instead. I will tell it the SOCKS proxy, the SOCKS 5 is fine. And I'm going to make sure this is the default for everything I'm going to use. And that color is fine. I'll say OK. Now I want to add me a new proxy. And this one is not going to be a SOCKS proxy, it's going to be an I2P proxy. I'm going to go here and I'm going to give it a different color just so I know which one it is. I'm going to give it yellow. I'm going to call it I2P. Proxy settings. Let's point that to 127.0.0.1 and port 4444. Remember I was mentioning that 4445 for SSL? I only really have to worry about that if I'm out proxying to the public internet, and I'm not going to be doing that through I2P. I'll be doing that through Tor instead because it has more exit points. And we got to set up a URL pattern so it knows when something is an I2P site. And so I'm going to add me a new pattern. I'm going to call that pattern I2P. I can call it anything, but that's what I'm going to call it. And the pattern we want to set up, you can actually use regular expressions. You can get much more complicated with it. But the one we're going to set up is star.I2P/star. There's more complex regexes that would probably be more complete, and there might be some weird side effects with this one. But I think it's going to cover most of our bases. Okay. Whitelist. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. I think that's good. And I'll say OK. Now I want to add one new proxy. And this one's going to be called direct. And we'll go set it to be direct internet connection. And we got a new URL pattern we want to use. And this one, I'm just going to copy and paste. Basically, anything for local host, we want to make sure doesn't get sent to the proxy. Otherwise, we could never be able to configure I2P. So that's why we're putting in that string right there. So we'll add that pattern. I'll just call it local. One thing you got to be careful is you don't have a space in the front. Otherwise, that will screw things up. OK. OK. Make sure that direct is moved to the top. And you know what? I'd much rather give it a capital D because I'm a little bit OCD. And change the color to, let's say, red because I know I'm not using a proxy. So close. And now if this works, we can continue to go to Tor sites. Oh, notice it didn't have my history. Didn't remember I'd been to irongeek.com. That's because Tor browser erases your history every time you shut it down. It does remember, though, if you set things like default home pages. By the way, yesterday was my 10th anniversary. Yay! For irongeek.com. Alright. Now, hopefully, if we try to visit some of these sites like forum.I2P, it'll send to the I2P. Oh, one thing I haven't done yet. I screwed this up. I need to right click on here and say use proxies based on predefined order. I didn't do that. So hopefully now if I try that again, it'll send that one to I2P, and other ones it will send to I need addresses. Come on, close that. Open a new tab. Hopefully. Well, we know the Tor one works. Let's see if we can actually configure I2P. 127.0.0.1 and it's a 7657. Yet we can configure. Forms is just taking a really long time to come up. Let's try 1/1. Iron Geeks. Deep site unknown. Or at least I know it's sending it to the proxy. We can try using one of the jump services. But there we have it set up to where we can use Tor at the same time as I2P by setting up Foxy Proxy. And there's my little Tor icon. Okay. Another little interlude. Who's heard of these guys? LulzSec. Here's how these guys got caught. Hector was out there and he usually used Tor to connect to IRC. But one time he screwed up and he didn't. And on IRC, assuming you're not using, I believe it's, oh great, I'm trying to think of what it's referred to as, a mask, I believe. You can usually just info somebody's name and figure out what host they're coming from. And sometimes the username on that machine that they are, which we'll show you in a bit. So one time he does this and the FBI can find his home IP address and visit him. And of course he starts to collaborate for reduced sentence or whatnot. And there was another guy he was talking to online who has had problems before. I actually knew about this guy before I ever heard of LulzSec many, many years ago because he'd been involved in this kind of thing. He gave a DEF CON presentation that really pissed off a lot of people in the crowd. But Jeremy Hammond was also on IRC. Now, he did slip up. He always seemed to use Tor. However, what they were able to do was because of things he told Hector, they could narrow down the suspects. Like he said some things that indicated he was in the Midwest. He indicated where he'd been arrested before. So this kind of quickly narrowed down who the suspects could be, and they got a court order to monitor his network traffic. They were never able to bust Tor. People keep saying Tor's been busted. Not exactly. They get around it. It's well, I think side channel attacks might be the right term. So they were able to get access to monitor his internet. Well, while they're doing that, they can correlate every single time that he's online when he's talking to Hector. So between those two, eventually, they're actually able to raid him. So they correlate the times, and they know it's him. At least assuming after they confiscate the computer. And I'm not sure how all the evidence has to do, what you need to get like a court order to do something like that. But they fairly got enough on him through the correlation attacks to figure out it was him and bring him in.
Yeah, with the court order, we wouldn't be able to get any content. We would be able to get the net traffic, just like the IPs that are visiting, so you'd be able to tell when he's connecting to a Tor node or something like that.
But could you get a warrant then for the computer later on if you had enough times where you saw that there was a connection to Tor at the same time that this chat was happening?
Yeah. Once through the evidence that you collected with the court order, you could build up to that level of probable cause, which then a judge will go, okay, what you have here is enough to say this guy is probably some G. And
this guy had a history before, so that probably makes it a little easier, I'd think.
Yeah, in particular with what his history was, it was like, okay, this guy could be this guy. Then when you have that, the lawyers love the term totality of the circumstances, where you have 7 things that, let this guy line up.
I just don't trust white guys with dreadlocks. There's something about off-putting about that.
Yeah, he looks like he's from a bad early '90s band or something.
But anyway, the lessons learned from this is use Tor consistently. Don't half-ass it like Hector did. Don't give out personal information that can be tied back to you, because that's one of the reasons they were able to get enough information to even get the court order to monitor Jeremy's traffic. And once again, correlation attacks are a bitch.
And finally, if you're white, don't have dreadlocks.
And if you're white, don't have dreadlocks.
That's a dead giveaway.
And also, you can avoid all this by not breaking the law.
Oh, well, there's that too.
Because then we don't give a crap, because we got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You just be a stick in the mud. Come on. All right,
no, you can use Tor and all that. That's fine. Just don't go hacking shit for a profit.
All right, places to go, data to see. I've shown some of this before. If you want to check to see if you're using Tor, that's a little useful link. Core.onion, I think that was failing to come up before, but it's another like portal site. The hidden wiki and Tor directory, you want to find some more links to go to. Onion list, same kind of thing. Tor links. Oh, New Yorker Strongbox. Let's actually see if we can get some of those sites to come up. I have all this set up to where hopefully you can quickly jump to it, but
That's the anonymous submission stuff for the newspapers.
yes.
From what's his name helped us on that?
Oh, Jacob Applebaum maybe? I'm honestly not sure.
I think he committed suicide.
Aaron Schwartz, yes.
Involved with starting Strongbox.
This is a little site you can go to see if you're using Tor or not. Since you see this isn't a 149 number, 149.160 or something, you know we're using Tor from that. My site's icon does something similar. But there's a few of those sites, and I didn't bring Strongbox in. And for some reason, some of the directories are not coming up properly. Let me actually... hate to break out of this. I need to add this to my notes page, but I didn't. So I could easily click on them and go there. Let's... I thought I copied you. Lovely. Now it's not functioning. You know what we're going to do? We're going to visit it in my other window here, because this one I can paste into. And quite frankly, I really don't want to try to transcribe that by hand. That's fugly. And let's also try to get Tor links up. And while we're at it, let's get Strongbox. This is where basically you can give information anonymously to the New Yorker. Shift F5. I always want to hit F and Shift 5. A lot of times I'm working from a Mac, and I have to use weird key combinations to make things work as I want them to. Alright, here's a bunch of Tor links. Let me... What the... Oh crap, you don't even see what I have up. I gotta figure out how to fix this. Display settings. Duplicate slideshow. Okay, now at least it's showing the same thing on both screens. I just want to make sure my slides are up. There we go, that's better. We'll get back to that in a second. Alright, here's Strongbox. We can give anonymous information to the New Yorker. Here's Tor links. Well, let's see what kind of stuff we have in Tor links. We have some stuff on financial services, things you can use to take care of Bitcoin accounts. Some shops, places where you can sell stuff. You can create your own onion store. That's interesting. I wonder what gets sold there. Oh, Hitman Network. That could be fun. UK passports. Identity services, so if you want to get yourself some fake IDs, there we go. Rent a hacker. Let's see. Drugs. Some of the usual suspects. As you can see, the SilkRoad, the original SilkRoad, wasn't the only thing out there. Physical goods. Oh yeah, you want to get some guns and ammo in the UK. There you go. Digital goods. Erotica. Yeah, let's not click on those. Though this one's all looks safer than some of the ones I've seen listed on other sites. Torch is like a search engine for Tor sites. That could be fun. The hidden wiki, well, it was failing to come up earlier. I'm going to open it up anyway.
It worked for me.
It worked for you?
Yep.
Tor PM, there's a bunch of email services. Tormail itself, I thought they took down. But I know it was a public-facing side of it that was still up. Let's see, what else we got here? Storage, hacking, good. There's a ton of stuff if you want to go exploring. Onion lists. This is another thing similar to that page with a ton more links. You can go out and check out all these other hidden sites. You can also check out IRC, and it's going to take a long time to configure that, so I'm just going to show it to you and show you how you configure it and maybe not actually do it, but I had you download Pigeon earlier so that you could if you really wanted to. These hidden services, you can set things up to where you can connect to them. And the way you would go about doing that is you'd set up a SOCKS 5 proxy and you'd point it to the particular IP address and port. You would configure things so you'd have your name in there and where you want to go. And you'd put in some other information, like what your username is and what your real name is. And use general proxy settings. That's one way of doing it. But you can do it individually. You know what? I lied to you. I think we actually should show doing something in IRC. So let me back up and let me find one of these IRC services that I think will work. Let's see, IRC. I have. You know what? In doubt. I put a lot of information out here. Oh, by the way, down here at the bottom, you see I have a bunch of names. I found a bunch of names from the NSA documents that Snowden linked to projects that they've been doing. I thought it was kind of interesting stuff. All right, let's try For the Win. We're going to grab that, and we're going to set up a Tor hidden service for it. And we're going to connect to its hidden service. Hidden services do not have to be web pages. In this case, it's an IRC server. So we'll install. Let me see what I put it. Portable Pigeon. Okay. Next. Install. And let's go ahead and run Portable Pigeon. There we go. And let's see if we can add an account. We want to create an IRC. We'll point it towards our server, which is this one. Username, let's go with Iron Geek. And I don't have a password for this server, so we'll just leave that blank. Local areas. Now, normally the ident name and the real name, you do want to fill these things out. Otherwise, it's going to say your real username you logged into the machine as by default, at least with this particular browser. And I'm going to demonstrate how that works here in a second. But I'm going to leave it blank so I can show you a security problem. Alright, I'm not going to use the global proxy. Instead, I'm going to use a SOCKS 5 proxy. Oh, actually, I think there is one thing I may be screwing up here. I'm trying to find a setting that says resolve on the remote end. And I'm not seeing... Oh, Tor Privacy SOCKS 5. I bet you that one does the resolving on the remote end. I didn't actually see that setting last time I did my notes update, so I think that's been added since. That's nice. We'll say 127.0.0.1 and port. Well, this is the one that the Tor browser bundle uses, so 91,050, and say add, and say close, and hopefully it'll connect. It says it's available. Let's go to buddies. I know join chat, I think, room list, and here's a bunch of sites on this hidden service. That's an IRC server that we can get to. Hutcore Fantasy. I'm not sure what exactly Hutcore is. Cams. I have a good idea what those are. MJB. I'm going to guess stands for male jailbait. Okay, that's getting a little gross there. Yeah, there's something, you know. I'm a perv, but I like them 21 and above. Okay, but anyway, that's simple IRC. It's useful to get in there, and that's probably where you're going to find some more interesting things as far as chatting with people. And I hate to give the impression that Tor and I2P is all sickles. It's not. I actually think most of the people on Tor and I2P are networking crypto arenas like me. People like ZZZ and Roger Dingledine who just have an interest in this kind of privacy network. I think next up you're probably gonna find a lot of people who just don't want other people to know what they're up to, and they just like to be private on the internet. After that, I imagine there's a lot of piracy going on. There's some BitTorrent stuff going on out there. I2P actually has BitTorrent stuff built into the install. Then you have some selling of drugs and so forth. But unfortunately, you also have some more scummy elements like pedophiles and university administrators. I'm joking. University administrators can't figure out how to use Tor I2P. They're not actually there. All right, let's. I totally meant to show you that security issue I mentioned. Let me actually join one of these things. Let's join this chat. List those rooms, and let's look at one that looks Spanish security. Yeah, let's join Spanish security. Hablo a wasp? I don't know. Okay, let me move you over here. I'm trying to find. All right, this is not the most user friendly. You can, I can't remember the exact command, but you can do an info on someone's name, and real name Iron Geek, ident name Iron Geek. Apparently, I set my ident name on this somehow or another. Or actually, who did I log into this machine as? Iron Geek. That's the account name I was on. I thought I'd logged in as Adrian. If I had logged in as Adrian, it would say Adrian there. Well, that really shortens the list. So, if you're on IRC and someone hasn't manually set their ident information, then you're probably going to be able to figure out at least a little something about them based on the username. But that one wasn't so impressive since. Now, if I used my worm name instead and you saw Iron Geek there, that quickly eliminates because I'm one of the few people online that uses Iron Geek as a handle. Okay. That's setting up a Tor IRC. And my instruction notes here are pretty much crap because it was for a much older version. That's apparently something I did not update since I did this talk last. Tor IRC, well, you always saw me essentially set that up. You can also specify an exit node. Let's say you wanted to go in and only access certain sites. Let's say you only wanted to be in the US. Let me show you how to go about doing that. I'm going to close this down for the time being. Get back into you later. Let's go into the Tor browser. And if we go underneath of, I need to remember what path it is. Data Tor. We can edit our Tor RC file to oh man, I should always remember to install Notepad++. That just makes everything much nicer. I thought I had this VM set up better than that. Luckily, it's not using Unix file returns, otherwise it would be a huge pain in the ass. And since I like to do everything right on this, we want to specify an exit point. You can get these lists of exit points by going out to a website like this. Let me show you. Tor status. Now, if you're using the Vidalia bundle, let me show that to you too. If you're using the bundle as opposed to the client, you can go in and view network and see them that way and get those keys. It should be someplace in here that you can copy out. What we can do instead, though, if we don't have that, is we can go out here to this website and choose one, and we can go in and choose by what information we want. Like we can say by router name, or we can say, let's see, we want to say we only want to see ones that are exit points. And apply options, and then we can choose one of these and just add them to that list. And we can use more than one if we want. I think it's comma separated. You can go to the details of one and pull them up and copy the fingerprint out. You have to take the spaces out and use it to specify an exit point. Instead of doing that, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use exit nodes US. And by the way, this is essentially a suggestion unless you use strict exit nodes. Use strict exit nodes. If it can't find one that matches your criteria, it doesn't connect to Tor. Otherwise, it tries its best effort. So where I'm going to set it up is try your best effort to connect to US. See, I'm in Amsterdam right now. Hopefully, after I do what I'm about to do, it's going to say I'm coming out in the US. Now, there are legitimate reasons for wanting to do this, or semi-legitimate. Like, let's say you want to watch a BBC show and you can't get to it from the US. Okay, maybe not totally legitimate. You're not British law enforcement. It's all right. It's all good. All right. Oh, it doesn't work outside the country? Though, truthfully, over Tor, those kind of streaming sites would probably be painful. All right. I'm going to save this exit nodes US. Save. And I don't think I have to close it down. I think I can just right click and say new identity. And I think that's going to give me a new identity. And hopefully this is going to be a US site when it comes up. Well, it's not. So I obviously screwed something up. Let me go back in and double check what I edited. Well, that's what we got.
I love how on the hidden wiki, the first thing under political advocacy is assassination market. It's like, really? I guess that is one way to get your political agendas done.
Actually, you know what? I'm thinking it didn't actually restart Tor at the time. So I'm going to stop the browser, bring it back up, and then see if it works.
Do you also have to say strict exit nodes?
Well, they should surely be able to find one in the US. Yeah. Technically, yeah, because it could be that there was none in the US it could find, and then it decided to send me to Amsterdam. But, okay. Maybe. Come on. Good Tor browser. Come on. And it says it's already running, but it must be doing something not so happy. Well, hopefully we can come back to it in a bit, and it'll be functioning. Oh, there we go. That's not the one I wanted. Let's see. Anyway, normally when you do that, it does work. Something just got kind of hosed on this install. We can try to come back to it in a bit and fix it. But strict exit nodes is say only go out for those particular ones. And there's a whole FAQ out there. There's other ways you can configure this, like with nicknames instead of the long fingerprints. There's also a thing called Tor bridges. And the way a bridge works is it's not advertised in the directory. You have to go out to this site and collect some. So let's go to bridges.torproject. I said com, didn't I? It's org. You can go out here and eventually make it. What's doing it saying? I'm going to go back and check on here. This is going to be really bad if I can't get that up and running again. So I'm going to use the Windows solution for all things. This site's been down for me a couple of times. Let me make sure that it's listening on, maybe it's not listening on port 80. Okay, it looks like, okay, let me tell you what it would be if it showed up. You could basically request, you have to enter a CAPTCHA and you could get a couple of bridges you could connect to that aren't publicly advertised other than on that one page. There's no one single collection of it. You could also request to get some emailed to you. Or if you call up a buddy in another country, have him have it emailed to you because you can't connect to the Tor bridges, because I'd have to imagine most countries would kill that connection too. So what should have came up would be a site where we could get those bridges. And then what you could do is you could right click on your Tor icon, go to Preferences, Security Settings. Let me see. We can configure a ton of things in here. Oh, crap. Let me open network settings instead, perhaps. Here we go. You can say my internet service provider blocks connections to Tor network. Then you can put those relays in here to be able to connect to them. But I'm not going to do that because I don't actually have one, and unfortunately it looks like the bridges is currently down, which is unfortunate, so I can't show that. But that's probably something, actually, if the guy who was, what was it, Harvard bomb threat, if he had done that, he probably wouldn't have got caught. Not that I'm trying to give people ideas or anything, I'm just saying. Okay, let that log in. Alright, bridges. Now this is a type of bridge I haven't messed around with enough. There's something I'm messing around with called obfusc proxy. How would you it's jumping around like all hell. Alright, obfusc proxy, it uses something called pluggable transports, where you can make your traffic look like something else. Normally, if you sniff Tor traffic, it looks vaguely like SSL encrypted web traffic. It's all going over port 443, generally speaking. But there's certain ways about the way the packet is structured as far as size, my understanding, that you can tell it's probably Tor. So they've made these ways of doing pluggable transports so you can make your traffic look like straight up HTTP traffic, Skype traffic, and other things. I haven't done enough research to know exactly how they're going about doing this. I was having some problems getting that particular version of the browser bundle to work, and I don't think it's as well supported yet. But I'll give you an idea of how you could do this. Let's say you want to make all your traffic look like HTTP. You have most of it just be plain text, but then have a bunch of images in it. But inside the images actually have the data you're trying to pass, but in an encrypted form. So it looks generally like actual HTTP traffic, but it's not. So that's kind of the idea. So you'd have your Tor client, it would talk to an obfusc proxy client, go past the censored network that's actually looking for Tor traffic, and get to the server on the other end, and then to a Tor bridge. And you can actually request these kind of bridges when you go to that website, if that website was coming up. Okay, that was a lot of stuff from Tor. Let's talk about some I2P services and apps. So here's our I2P. You have a BitTorrent client. You have SusieMail, which is basically an inside there for email. iMule, this is like an email client for I2P. This is a distributed file system. Have you ever heard of Freenet? Freenet is another site that the way it works is you can put something out on Freenet and you don't have to host it. It somehow gets embedded in Freenet and stays out there. Tahoe Laughs is something similar to that. There's more plugins at this site. Oh, Cindy is like it's like a distributed news way of sending out news, as I understand it. I haven't messed around with it a whole lot. If you go into the I2P client itself, let me see if we can get the Tor browser bundle up this time. And this also gives me a chance to check to see whether or not my little US setting worked. Oh, if your Tor browser bundle is out of date, there is a little warning that pops up, I believe, next to the Tor button. Definitely pay attention to that and update as necessary. Alright, that's up. Let's go to IronGeek. And we'll check what country it thinks we're from. It doesn't say. So I'm going to take it on faith that it's in the US. Well, I suppose we could find out more information by going into browser info on here. Well, here's your IP. In the meantime, I can open up. Let's see what we got. Tor, exit, this, that. What's the whois information? Yeah, it wasn't really able to find things. Oh, cookies is a whole nother topic. This should erase cookies every time I reboot, so that changes the new identity. If you're using a normal client, though, and you don't erase cookies, it's possible you can check my site out, and I do watch for this, at least in this script. You can check out my site over the public internet, then come back and visit it using Tor, but I can correlate the two because the cookie's still there. Let's show some stuff in I2P. Again, that 7657 port. And I2P tunnel, graph, stats, tunnels, peers, email. That would be that SusieMail I was mentioning before. You actually have an email system that's built in that you can collect stuff from. There's a torrent client that you can use, and you can plug in the URLs for torrents that you find on other sites and start downloading stuff, assuming diff tracker comes up. I'll just let that run for a bit. But yeah, there's a lot of little features in I2P as well. As far as IRC is concerned, it's already technically set up. It's listening on port 6668. Essentially, just go in, configure it as such. No proxy, IronGeek. And it's not using a proxy because it has its own port on local machine that will forward everything for you. That's the way the tunnels work. So let's go back and see if we can get that to function. Alright, someplace or another, I should have Portable Pigeon. It's still in my downloads. So I'm going to fire Portable Pigeon up and I'm going to add me a new IRC. Okay, accounts, manage accounts, add. We'll go ahead and drop down IRC. And this other IRC clients out there, surely there's one better. Truthfully, I don't spend a lot of time on IRC. I'm gonna say my username is IronGeek, and my server is 127.0.0.1. And we'll go to advanced. We're gonna say 8 here because that's the port, and my ident, your mom, and even if I'm going to be insulting, I should definitely spell it right. Proxy, use global proxy settings. That looks right, that looks right, that looks right. Let's hope for the best and see what's, oh, IronGeek. Let's straighten that out too. Okay. Close. It looks like it's trying to connect. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Available, cool. Buddies, join us chat. I want to choose my I2P one. I'm going to do a room list. And here's a bunch of rooms. Salt, I have no idea what salt is. Let's see who has the most users. That might be the one. Fire hose. So we can full disclosure bug track stuff. Alright. So this one I'm a lot harder to find on. You see,
Yeah, right there.
yeah. Let's see what it says here now. Your mom. So instead of the account I logged in as. So there we go. And we're on IRC, and now we can, converse semi-privately. So I don't understand why when Anonymous was doing its thing, it wasn't doing that. Oh, here's an example of me logged into a machine where I logged in as IronGeek as my nick, but since I didn't change anything about my ident, it chose Pigeon saw that I was logged into that machine as Adrian and put that there, and that would have made connecting with my name a lot easier. Here's a bunch of sites. Here's a project site. This wiki might still be down. ZZZ keeps a forum. He's one of the main developers of I2P. Great guy. Meet him see him every once in a while at DEF CON. Forum I2P, which is basically a forum about I2P. It also has a web version of this site. Eep Sites is like a search engine for Eep Sites. This was another one. It may not be up anymore. Stats.I2P just has general stats about I2P. Let me go to direct.I2P. These two sites used to be the two main ones you go to see what Eep sites are currently up. Not so much anymore because I think they're both down. But let me bring this up and see if I can get to. It was direct.I2P, wasn't it? Didn't mean to open it that way. That's okay if it works though. Oh, this is one of those trackers I was mentioning for BitTorrent stuff. Though I don't think there's a whole lot of illegal content out there, other in the sense that it's pirated, but it's not nasty. Like here's someone's version of Big Bang Theory. Let's go back here, and it's still connecting to those sites. Those are basically index sites that will tell you what's up. INR2. Oh, it says INR. Huh. Well, these were working before, and it's giving me fits right now. And see, it's still having problems connecting to those sites. And I would just use that box that's been integrated for longer, and it might function. But anyway, when those sites come up, what you end up getting is a collection of links that are still up, because it like polls them to see, is this EAP site still up? Is this EAP site still up? And so you'd have a good idea of whether or not it's functioning. But as of right now, oh, here is I2P name registry. Let's see, browse latest host. Let's browse live host. Latest host would be newest ones registered. And I believe this is one of the sites where you can register a name in SUSE DNS and then someone else can include it. 4chan.I2P. Yeah, that's not one we're going to visit in class. Ananacoin. Well, that's pretty obvious what that is from the name. And a ton more, and you kind of got to figure out what the name is. But unfortunately, I don't think there's as good an indexes out there on I2P as there is Tor. Because sometimes you have to visit to figure out what's what. Here you have a little bit of a description at least. But that's a few EAP sites, though most of them are giving me fits. The distributed nature of I2P is sometimes both a blessing and a curse. Let's go with another story. Everybody loves stories, right? Let's talk about Freedom Hosting. Have you heard about this little event? What happened to Freedom Hosting is, amongst other things, they were hosting child porn. They actually hosted a lot of stuff, but they did have some CP. Well, they did come under fire previously by Anonymous, trying to de-anonymize people in there for trading CP. Sometime in July 2013, the FBI compromised Freedom Host, and they inserted their own malicious JavaScript. And there was this particular bug. I'm not going to read that one off. And it worked in version 17 ESR. Now, by the time the FBI was using this bug against the site, it had already been patched in the browser bundle. However, how often do people actually update when they should? So a lot of people are still using the old version. What happened was, since people didn't patch, they were able to install this malware called Magneto. And what Magneto did is it reported back to this IP address in Virginia. And along with the IP address of the actual public IP address, it also gave the people information like the Windows host name, unique serial number to tie that user to that site visit, and maybe some other odds and ends. Alright, and after this was done, they were able to find out more information, but eventually an Irishman, Eric Eoin Marques, however you say it, is alleged to be the operator of Freedom Hosting. And I'm not quite sure how they tied it to him, but I believe it was payment records. Basically, they figured out what servers were running Freedom Hosting, because they were able to compromise them and put up their own content. So once you compromise it, you know what the IP address is. And then from there, I think they followed paper trails to how he paid for those particular servers. Apparently, when they busted him, he made a dive with his laptop to shut it off. Full hard drive encryption is great. Unfortunately, if someone can get to the machine before you can shut it down, and they can pull information out of it because it's up and running, still logged in, essentially it's unencrypted at that point, as long as they can keep the machine up and running. There's even these little, I don't remember what they call them, jigglers, wigglers. Some forensics guys using, they plug them in and it moves the mouse point by point every once in a while just to keep things live. You can make your own for cheaper using like a Tensy. But as long as they keep the machine alive, they can see what data is on it. They can do some forensic works on the memory and so forth. So he dived to shut it down, but didn't quite make it. Lessons learned. Patch. Most of these people who got busted here would not have got busted if they had patched. If they had used the newest Tor browser bundle, that vulnerability would not have been there. Follow the money. This guy paid for his servers apparently using not Bitcoin or anything, but normal financial means, and leave encrypted laptops in a powered down state. Anyway, all right. Now talking about making a hidden server contact you over the public internet. Essentially, you want to make some kind of connection that doesn't respect the proxy settings, and you can use that by either sending an exploit, or if it's a client-side exploit, give them to visit a site with that exploit, and you'll find out the IP address because it's not going to respect the proxy. You can make it so it doesn't respect the proxy. I tried to find a good Metasploit module that would work for this. Unfortunately, everything was only Windows XP SP3, and even when I tried using that, I couldn't get the function right. I don't know if something about my VMs was screwing it up, so I couldn't find a Metasploit module to demo this in. But I want to demo this anyway, and the way I'm going to demo it is a little different. Let's say you visit one of my sites, and let me pull this up. I got some darknet notes here. Let's say you visit one of my sites that I'm running. Right here, I have a little document called track.docx. Now, this could be on a hidden site, or it could be on the public internet, and you're just accessing it over Tor. So I'm going to access this site. I'm still using Tor. Okay, and it gives me a little bit of warning. I may not want to launch this, but let me launch this application anyway. I'm going to open it with Microsoft Word. Hi there. And notice this IP address. That IP address is not a Tor IP address. That is the actual IP address of, well, not technically that laptop, but that router right there. So right now I have the public IP address, and if I go out to a different site that I run, and I'll probably have to log in to get this one to work, I can actually trace it. Oh, by the way, you're going to see a lot of IP addresses in this. These are all ones essentially I have there because I got to use the regular Firefox for this. I have there because I posted online about making a tracking doc, and a bunch of people visited it from Twitter. A whole bunch of people. And here's the one that I just connected from. Now, if I wanted to, I could take this information. Whoa, come on, Eden, back up. And correlate it with some other information, like who's visited me recently. So I actually log all the Tor exit points that visit my site. For fun, for giggles. And do your thing, come on. Right here, we see this one visited, and the approximate time, 17:14:43. And for this one down here, 17:34:36. So things are not quite the same, but based on similar timings, you might kind of figure out who's who. If that makes sense. And actually that does make sense because, being a little, 14, that's still a little more often. I need to look. Oh, I'm not even looking at that wrong. I'm looking at the wrong one. One is topmost is the newest. One is the bottommost is the newest. I forgot how I programmed this. Alright, so you see that timing? 17:34:36. No, it's still. Oh well, I'm pretty sure this is who I visited from, because if I did it again, if I went out to Iron Geek. Oh, actually, now I remember. That image is only going to come up when I visit the front page. So if I visited I actually tracked via one of those images. So that's why I didn't see it. Now if I went back to that particular site, I would see someone new who had connected. So that one right there is probably me. But you get the general idea. That's just using a tracking document instead. So I guess you could put out a tracking document that said albino Nazi Eskimo porn, some people would download it and you'd be able to track who they are. Okay, we've gone on for a little bit now. Let's go ahead and take another, let's make it a 5-minute break. Is that okay? And be about 8:35 and get back in. I think I only have one last section. Well, maybe not one last section, but I think I can tie it all up in the next hour after we get back. So let's go ahead and reconvene at 8:35. This. All right. Welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about hosting some services. And remember, anything you're saying right now is probably being recorded. So, you know. We're going to, first of all, set up an I2P web page. We're going ahead and use the tunnel. It's already there. We're just going to make sure it's started up. Essentially, we follow these instructions. Oh, these are tweets. I'm sorry. I've got ahead of myself. Let me actually read this. If I want to make something accessible from the public internet, like I wanted to use that box as my proxy for my entire house, I can do that. I just have to do a few settings tweaks. I go into I2P, go into its settings, go into I2P tunnel, and right here, I can go into here, and once it comes up, instead of having it listening only on localhost, I can have it listening on 0000, which means anything, any one of its IP addresses it will connect on. I'm not going to do that, but it's useful if you want to have one machine on your network doing I2P and you can connect to it as a proxy from any of your other machines. I've also tried using a little Raspberry Pi as an I2P gateway. Sort of works, but I2P is Java based, and Java's a bear on small devices like that, so it didn't last very well as far as it was just didn't have enough power. Oh, you can also do a similar thing for the console if you wish, and you can set up a password on it. And I've set that up before too. If you want to make Tor accessible on your network, you would edit the SOCKS port and you'd set it to this. Let me show you how to do that on a Linux box. We could also do it in Vidalia, I believe. Well, let's do it on the Linux box because I know we can do it there. Alright, up this comes Nano, Etsy, Tor, Tor RC, and this is where we'd edit it. And you see on this one I'd already set it up, so I'd already gone in and told it to listen on 0000, which means all IP addresses. So that can also act as my little Tor gateway to my network. So I only have one machine running Tor if I wanted to do it that way. Oh, after doing that, of course, I'd also have to do a restart, which in this case would be as easy as a service Tor restart. Same thing with I2P if I make a lot of changes in there. But then you can have those boxes act as your gateways. Oh, if you want to install I2P as a service, here's the way you do it manually. However, we already did it at install, so this is not necessary. I'm assuming this still works since I just do it with the installer. I don't think I checked. Crap. Run I2P as a service in Ubuntu. Well, the way we can configure it, this is a different way that no longer really applies. Followed what I showed earlier. I probably should have removed this and just said use the app version. If you want to install Tor as a service on Windows, go ahead and go to where the Tor is, possibly in Program Files, Vidalia, Bundle Tor, Tor-install, and you can install it as a service so it automatically starts up even if no one's logged in. Now, if you want to make Videla work again, after making Windows, oh man, my spelling's atrocious in there. At one time, I had a problem getting Vidalia to work after making it a service, and this was my fix. It may not be necessary at this particular point. Run towards a service in Ubuntu Linux. I already showed essentially how to go about doing that. Well, actually, I don't think I did. Let's go back and edit that. I think in this case I already have edited it. Nano. Let's see, what is it? Etsy. Default Tor. Oh, actually, was that the place or not? Oh, it's in initd. I'm giving myself motion sick and it's going back and forth like this. Oh, that's just Tor.Vidalia. Oh, I did install Vidalia because. Oh, that one I thought I did. My understanding is I can edit this and set that to yes, and then it can automatically run and start up. But I think that's already configured to do as such. And then go ahead and start it up. You have to make sure there's a symbolic link in there. Though I think everything's configured. Some of these instructions are a little old, and it's actually easier than this now. Edit the Tor RC file. Let's say that you wanted to make it work in Linux again after installing it as a service. At one time, I had to do this particular set of instructions. Right now, Vidalia was giving me fits, so I configure my Tor services manually by just editing the RC file. It's a little easier that way. I have all these instructions already up on that notes page. Let's get to actually setting up a hidden service instead. We want to set up a hidden service, and what we're going to do is configure it to point to a website for us. So let's click OK and go web services. So let me go back here, and I think I have notes on this that will make it easier for me to copy and paste. Close that down. I get confused what's what on the screen sometimes. Alright, just a simple Tor hidden service. What we're going to do is we're going to put this in our RC file and restart, and we can target any old IP address we want. If we had a website listening on port 80 on the local machine, this would work. But this is something I thought I had updated my notes on, because I'm pretty sure that I'm not giving all the information in there that I need to give. Let me go ahead and edit my RC file and see if I can just show you how to do it. Let's nano Etsy Tor RC, and where you'd set that up in Linux is, let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, you see some lines here I have uncommented. The ones you want to pay attention to is this one and this one. Essentially, I've mapped a directory here and mapped a hidden service here and mapped it to localhost. And I have port 80. It actually has a web server running on it that I could go to, and you'd see what's there. Like, for instance, let me well, this browser probably is not going to bring it up. I don't have it set up where I can easily show you, but anyway, Apache is listening on the local machine, and this is mapping a hidden service for it. This particular directory, if we went out looking there, I could find the keys and the name of the site. So let me copy that, because I'm too lazy to type it back in again. I'm going to say no, because I didn't really make any significant changes. After that, putting in the hidden service like that, you'd have to reboot it, or restart Tor, like I showed you before with service Tor restart. But let's nano this file and see what we got. That's right. I mean, to nano one of the things inside it, host name. If you want to know what the host name is, that's the host name for that particular site. So if we try to visit it and copy and paste may or may not work, let's try it out. If not, I already have it copied a different way. Let's see if it'll let us. Now, luckily, I have it copied here. And please don't go visit this until I get a chance to show you some stuff on it, because this is a very vulnerable web page. And by the time the video is up, that site's not going to be there anymore. But that's my little hidden service where I'm running Utility, which I'll be showing some stuff in a bit. But that's setting up a quick hidden service using the config files. If you actually have a Vidalia up and running, you can do it in Windows 2. And let me see if I can get that functioning. So I should have Vidalia right here. I can go in and set up all sorts of things about how it's working. So let's go in and go to settings. This figures how things start. A few options about the network. Some sharing, basically how much bandwidth you want to use and so forth. I'm going to say run as client only. They don't really have a client only install of Vidalia because they want people to do one of these other things by default. But you can set it to be a client only if you wish. Now for services, you can just create a service, and I'm going to create a virtual port and a target. So let me see. Virtual port, I believe it was port 80. Let me see if I remember my syntax correctly on this. I'm going to point it to 192.168.1.1, and I got to give it a directory path. So I'm just going to give it C:, Tor directory services or something. Let's see if it will like that or not. I don't remember. Okay, now I go back into settings, go back into services, and I have an onion address. Now whether that's actually had its time to advertise it or not, I'm not sure. I want to copy that. Come on, give it to me. All right. Now, whether or not it's actually going to be able to make it to that particular site right now, I'm not sure. But if you're using the GUI, it should be super simple to be able to generate your own onion site that way. In that case, I was showing doing port 80, and you're doing a website. And this website, in this case, is the configuration page for that router over there. It could also have been mapped for like port 22, and I could SSH over Tor. I mean, that's just as possible to do as well. But that's setting up a quick hidden service. It's super simple, especially if you got the Vidalia bundle working. I do, though, recommend doing it in Linux instead and just doing the manual way I showed you. Okay, next up. Oh, here's me showing you how to do it inside of Linux. Essentially, edit your RC file, add the lines to point it to where the directory it's going to store its keys in is. Say what port and what IP address, and possibly what port again. Apparently, though, that's not 100% necessary. If you leave that off, it works anyway. It just assumes that it's the same port as your virtual port. And then you can just cat out whatever's in this file to see what your address is. Now, if you want to set up a hidden website using I2P, it actually has a website already built in. And I'm going to do this in Windows because at this point it's all in the browser anyway. I'm going to go back to I2P tunnel, and you see this one right here? There's already one listening. And here's just the default web page. Let's go out, and by default, depending on what version of Windows you have installed, this might be in some place slightly different. I am going to have to go Tools, see Photo Options, View, Don't hide stuff, Show me the hidden files. I don't even want you to protect those. Let me see everything. I didn't have to actually turn off all those options, but I did anyway. Underneath program data, I2P, EAP site. I have a bunch of configurations for the website, the web server that's already installed, Jetty. Right here, you suppose you can edit those by hand if you wanted to. Instead, though, we're going to go into doc roots, and here's that page that we had up just a second ago. Actually, that page redirects to another one. How about instead we edit that page? And I really wish I installed Notepad++ before doing this. Let's just cancel that. This is a quicker way of doing it. By the way, I'm using a tool called Virtual Win to do this multiple desktop thing, and unfortunately, it sometimes has a hair trigger. Okay, so there's this page. I'm trying to move just the stuff I don't want in there anymore. That might make it easier. I'm trying to stop the redirect. And let's put some stuff in there like hi there. It's a nice friendly greeting. Now hopefully if I did that right, when someone visits this site, assuming it doesn't try to pull up the cached version, which it might. Yeah, it looks like it's probably going to pull up the cached version. Actually, we'll just go get back to it in a second. Let's go back into here. Let's go to the web server, which I thought I started, but apparently not. That's starting up. Let's go in here, and we should see an address for it. We can make our own address and register it with SUSE DNS or with some of those other host file providers, but we should also be able to get it from here once it's finished starting up. I don't see it as of yet. Oh, one thing they do, after I did a correlation attack one of the things I did a while back when I was messing around with I2P is I tried to figure out a way to de-anonymize people. And my thought was that maybe they're hosting in I2P and also on the public internet at the same time, but scanning every single I2P address and then checking to see if it had a web server running and checking to see if it matched would take a long time. So what I did was I grabbed the headers of both the I2P site and whatever was listening on, like, say, port 80 on the remote IP, and I did a combination of who has matching server headers, and then I did a comparison for how much of the text is similar, all in Python, and then whenever they were real similar, I figured, ooh, that must be the same site that's hosting this EAP site, and I de-anonymized a whole bunch of people that way. See, eventually, once it finishes starting, we should have a host name signature right here that we'd be able to use. But it's giving me fits right now, actually functioning. And then we have our own EAP site up and running that we could get to. So we're just going to come back to that in a bit. And let me go back and see what my next slide is. Oh, auto start A, we probably want to enable that. Let me see if I can find that. This will start it automatically whenever I2P starts. Save that out. Well, crap. Hair trigger. Preview. Oh, there's my site. Hi there. And now I have my own little EAP site up and running. If I wanted to, I could map that key we saw before to a longer name. I'll be talking about backing up keys here in just a bit. So, those instructions again. I2P tunnel. Go in, set up a, let's say we want to set something different, like go into standard. We could set up a new one. Down at the bottom, say create, and we can set up one for socks. Now, hopefully, I can actually make this work, but I need to find me a socks server to do it to. You know what? I think I'm going to map one to the public internet because I don't know if I have socks listening on that. Sorry, SSH listening on that. Let me get out of this. Let me go back to here. Router console. Let me go to I2P tunnel, and let's try to create a new one. Standard. Create. Go back and see what we had set up here. We set up one for socks. I set up for 555. Let me go back in here, and I'm going to. Oh, did I set up a service tunnel? I meant to set up a standard. Hold on a second. Let me see what I got. Standard. Oh, that was a server tunnel. I want to do a client tunnel. I'm sorry. We could have created a new server tunnel if we wanted to, and depending on type, it would be different. Actually, I believe there is a server tunnel we want to set up. Let me let's try to set up one for secure shell over I2P. So create a server tunnel. Okay, I'm gonna call this one SSH. We'll auto start it. Let's see, data local destination. As I recall, let me back up and make sure that I have all my settings right. I want to map the target here and the port there. So I'm not sure we actually have SSH on that particular box. Let me find out something real quick. It doesn't have to be local to my network. I can find one out there on the public internet. So let me grab that IP address, and we'll make IronGeek EAP site as well, or a hidden service of sort inside of I2P. So we'll map to this IP address on port 22, SSH, and I'm trying to remember if there's any other settings I had to tweak on this. There may not have been. Okay, that's the SSH example. We can set the tunnel length if we wanted to. We'll leave that for a more advanced class, perhaps. You can define the number of hops. So you can, if you don't care about security as much as you do speed, you can have it like a really, really short. So I created that one, and it's slowly starting up. To be able to actually attach to it, though, we're going to have to create ourselves a client tunnel that we connect to. So I'm going to create a standard client tunnel. The difference between the standard and some of the other ones, if you set up one to say it's HTTP, it'll automatically strip some data from you that de-anonymizes you. Like it will strip your like information like on what server heading you have. At one time, the server header was unchanged by I2P. After I wrote that paper, they changed it. So now it makes it a generic one. All right, so, oh man, I keep switching screens and not meaning to. Okay, we're going to create a new one. We're going to make a proxy, a socks proxy. Access port 5555 on the local host. We could open it up to more if we wanted to. Shared clients. Auto start. I'm trying to remember which settings I had to set for this. Let me go back for a second and double check what I have right here. Looks like I started both of those, shared clients and auto start, to make it work. And let's see, come on. Save and hope for the best. Alright, now that that's up and that's up, hopefully what we can do is, if we have PuTTY installed, actually be able to SSH into IronGeek.com over the I2P network. Now, one of the reasons you might want to do this is, let's say there's something called a Zvodcast, I think might be how you spell it, a black throw. It's a device you can leave behind on someone else's network, where you don't want it tied back to you is remoting to you. So you can have it hosted inside of the I2P network and connect to it over either I2P or Tor and not have anybody know So you're the one that's actually controlling that box inside, though it might be slow as hell. Okay, and it thinks I'm in another country. Lovely. You know what? It would help if I didn't leave in the network settings that I did before. No proxy, thank you much. We'll go ahead and grab Putty. Alright, run. I'm going to create me a new profile called I2P SSH, and I'm going to set it up to where it connects to a certain IP address. In this case, this base 32 address. I'm going to set that as the destination. Now I'm going to go in the proxy, and I'm going to set to use a SOX5 proxy that is on the local host and on port 5555 as I configured earlier. And see, I'm going to say do DNS on the end. Otherwise, it's going to be those DNS links. If we do a class on de-anonymizing, I might actually sit there and sniff them and show you where the DNS leaks happen. But I don't really want iOS's DNS service to see where I've been going. Now, hopefully, it'll try to attach to that, and I should hopefully get a login prompt back, assuming I didn't screw up one of my settings. I'm just going to look at this while I'm here. Looks right. Looks right. So it could be that it's just slow, or it could be that I screwed something up. But that should be the general way in which I can create a tunnel and be able to SSH in over I2P. We're just going to leave that running for a while and can just continue on. Alright, that was me talking about how to make the SSH. Let's talk a little bit about backing up hidden service keys. That's definitely something you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to lose. If let's say you had to rebuild the machine, you wouldn't be able to get that same site back up. You'd lose your particular onion address or your particular I2P address. So in this case, where those are stored, in the case of Tor, when I created up that little service, it put it right here for me, wherever I created that service directory. So I can just copy it out of there and I'm good to go. In the case of I2P, it kind of depends on if it's Windows or Linux. But in the case of Windows, if I go into program data, I2P, it always backs up my keys for my services. Like you'll see two different services I've already created. I just have to back those up and re-implement them later. And then when I try to reconfigure them, instead of having it make the key by default, I pointed at this file.
From a law enforcement standpoint, would that be where I'd want to look to identify you? As
yeah, if you see that file there and it matches a known website, that's me. But also if you see that file, that website's probably on this local machine. And SSH is not being a happy camper. But I believe I got the settings right on how it should work. It may just take some time before that website is, well, accessible. Or sorry, website, that SSH connection is accessible. Let's see. Backing up Tor and hidden services key. This is basically just what I said a second ago. Backing up I2P. When you look in the I2P interface, you'll actually see the name of the key that it's using. Not only is that key, but it also makes a backup. For instance, you actually want to see the straight up key that it was using. Let me find that for you. That was the backup. That's from a particular node. Let's see. Oh, it's out here. That should be the same key as one of those keys inside it, like I2P 7 tunnel private key. Suppose I could also just copy that instead. Let me see which one it says. Private key. This one points to each site private, and this one I'm hoping is the 7. Yeah, that was the 7 one I just showed you. Well, it hasn't aired out, but it also hasn't connected. Not the best demonstration in the world, but at least you saw it hosting an EAP site that's built into it. Alright, back into I2P tunnel key, I always showed that as well. It's in private keys, or you can just back up the direct file. That brings me to another little interlude. And I've got to thank Nate Anderson. He wrote a great article on this. A lot of people weren't really talking about how this guy got de-anonymized, but Nate's article was awesome because it just had all the little details in it. But this guy's Ross. Ross William Ulbricht. How do you pronounce that? Ulbricht?
Ulbricht?
How do you pronounce it? See, I'm not have a bad time pronouncing people's names. Yeah, I'm gonna call him Ross. He's alleged to be Dread Pirate Roberts, the guy who ran the original SilkRoad. And basically, they sell a lot of illegal goods. I showed you the new version of it here just a bit ago. Largely, the original site was very much like that. Maybe a little bit more reliable, but still. Well, they had about $1.2 billion in exchanges on SilkRoad, so obviously the FBI got a little bit interested in them. So they started to look for the earliest references they could to the SilkRoad. They were trying to figure out where did this site come from, who runs it. So they started looking out for the oldest references to the SilkRoad. And you can use Google search parameters to say, give me certain date ranges. Well, the earliest post they could find was by this guy named Altoid on shroomery.org, a website which I presume is about, well, people who like shrooms. You know, shiitake and mushrooms and all that. That stuff's great on pizza, man. You all try it. On these forums, though, he posted in 2011, and he mentioned this site, SilkRoad, as anybody used it before. Basically, he was advertising his own site. Also, an account named Altoid was used to make a post on Bitcoin looking for an IT pro in the Bitcoin community and asked interest parties to contact him at, oh, let me back up, this freaking email address. Yeah, okay. This name, that name. This isn't looking good. Alright. The Ross Ulbricht account was also posted on Stack Overflow, some code asking questions about connecting to a Tor hidden service. He quickly realized his mistake and he changed his name to Frosty, but the records were still there, I guess, with the name change. So that was in 2012. Continuing on. So those are early references that pretty much dead up tied a guy to SilkRoad. 2013, I believe this was 7/10/2013, U.S. Customs received like 9 IDs at the border, I believe it was, and they all had Ulbricht's picture on them. So they went and talked to the guy. And strangely, he denied having ordered them. But he said something that, you know, anybody could have ordered something like this on the SilkRoad. Why the fuck will you mention the site that you're running that has all that illegal content like that in that context? I mean, I just don't understand. Oh. Okay, so the FBI starts taking down SilkRoad servers, and I'm trying to remember how exactly they originally got this information. I think they may have done a drug bust on somebody because they have to get shipped to them, and then that person was someone who worked for Dread Pirate Roberts, and so that guy kind of turned on him because, well, the cops have you, what you're going to do. Though this is conjecture to a degree because I don't remember exactly how this part went down. There's also been some conjecture that they hacked the SilkRoad service, and I'm going to give you an example in a bit about how you can de-anonymize someone if you can get access to the remote box. It's also possible that if they did find someone who worked there, that just gave them admin access, and then they can find out the IP addresses from there. Once they figured out the real-world IP addresses, they were able to go out and get a copy of the servers. Once they have a copy of the server's hard drive, they can look around for more evidence on it. And that's what they did. On that hard drive, there was an SSH public key for Frosty. So it also had some source code that was very similar or the same as the stuff that was posted by Ross on Stack Overflow. And eventually the FBI landed on him in a library right after he entered his password into his laptop. And more evidence was found in his laptop. Lessons learned, keep online identities separate. Keep different usernames. Don't use the same one all over the place. If I want to keep myself secret on Tor and I2P, I'm not going to use the name Iron Geek. I'm going to use Carl Alexander. That's what I'm going to do. Anyway, and also don't volunteer information about yourself. For instance, the whole thing about anybody could buy this on SilkRoad. Now, we'll talk about more advanced stuff in a second, but who wants to see me try to hack a website? Granted, I set it up myself, but to give you an example of how you can do this. Let's show. A little show and tell. Now, for this, I'm setting up incredibly... That is so sad. And the worst thing is, I don't think I saved my settings before I hit go. We'll just close you down and not worry about you. Alright. One of these windows, I have what I need. This site I brought up earlier. This is Mutilidae. So essentially, it's a deliberately vulnerable web application that I originally started, but now Jeremy Druin has done way more work on it than I have. It has all sorts of vulnerabilities to illustrate the OWASP top 10. By the way, Mutilidae is my favorite WASP. That's why it's called that. Now, JavaScript has been disabled by default. JavaScript is not part of the vulnerability I'm about to show. However, this website doesn't run real well without it, so I'm going to temporarily turn it on for this web page, just so I can actually show these exploits. The first one I'm going to show, if I can get it to go and run, is an injection attack where we can do command injection. I'm going to do a DNS lookup. There's other ways command injection could happen, and generally web applications are not going to be as insecure as this one is, but the way this app is supposed to work is you type in an IP address or a name and it will resolve it for you. However, like it resolved that one. However, what this actually is doing is using some commands in PHP to fire something up off the local command shell. So let's say I wanted to add some extra commands to that. Well, what could I do to de-anonymize him? Well, one thing I could do is I could have it ping me publicly. And if I fired this off and I had a sniffer going, let's say I was 88888. That's actually one of Google's DNS servers. If I did that, I could make it ping me and see who's actually pinging me. And then I would know the IP address because I could just sniff it and see it. It's who the source is. And by the way, that's -C is so it doesn't just keep pinging and pinging and pinging. But that's not very visual, and I didn't want to fire up a sniffer, so let's be even lazier. Let's use traceroute. So we're going to do traceroute. We're only going to do 3 hops, otherwise this takes forever and a day to return. And let's see what traceroute says. Come on. Alright, traceroute. Well, first hop, this is a box that's acting as a NAT box. That's a little wireless router over there. But this is the public IP address of that NAT box. And there you go. You can de-anonymize it that way. And then you see a few other hops along the way. So for being an injection, that's one way you can do it. Another injection you can do is, well, insecure direct object referencing. I have this text file viewer. The way it's supposed to work is you choose a text file, and it includes it and shows it to you. I use some stuff from Jason Scott for that. And here in a second, it should return, the text file. But let's say I modify that to return something arbitrary. This is that direct object reference file I was mentioning to you. This is a very simple PHP script that does nothing but return a website. Let me actually access it over the public internet to show you what it does. All it does is return that information. That's it. Well, I'm going to access it over Tor. So I'm going to right click on here and say inspect element. And one of the lovely things about Firefox is you can rewrite the page if you want inside there. A lot of people say, well, you can't edit my HTML, so you can't change this. Bullshit. You can change it. Right here, I can go in, and since I'm editing that element, I can edit the URL is there, replace it with my own, and now, hopefully, view that file, and it's not going to use the ones that the author intended. It's going to view my file, which has... Okay, I told you the wrong thing about the hops. It didn't show me the actual IP address, but it did show me the first one on that subnet. So I was a little off on that. But that's the actual IP address, and the ping would have showed my actual IP address also. Either way, you get a lot closer to the person, and that actually should be the IP address, public IP address of that particular router. And that's doing it from a couple little simple hacks on the website, depending on how well they keep things patched, whether or not there's problems. So if you want to de-anonymize a website, and it's running like a really old version of WordPress with a bunch of plugins, there's a good chance you might be able to do it. Now, I believe things like Tails actually do extra steps to firewall off everything that's not Tor I2P, so that you can't do that kind of thing. But if someone hasn't done that, then this is one way of getting them to contact you outside the internet. More advanced topics that we would have to talk about at a different time, I suppose. Torify, SocksCap, TSOCks. SocksCap, I haven't used that in a while. It was basically a way to take an arbitrary application and socksify it, make it use the socks proxy even if it didn't normally. And I believe that was in Windows. I haven't messed with it in a while. But see, not all web applications have socks proxy options. And there's ways of hacking it to make them work with a socks proxy. Torify is a Linux wrapper that will allow you to torify a random command, like let's say wget, if you want to do it over Tor. OnionCat, that was a way of setting up, I think it was something like a VPN connection sort of that tunneled over Tor or I2P. Well, Tor was the OnionCat, GarlicCat was the I2P one, of course. And a Svartcast is I think it's Swedish for dark throw. The idea is it's a box you leave behind on someone else's network and have it remote out to you. Professionally, those people who sell things like this, phone plugs. That would be an example. But Svartcast is generally something for anonymization, and it's going to be using Tor I2P, and you can connect it remotely without people knowing you're the one connecting to it. I got a whole bunch more links out there. If you're interested on talks on other darknets, I only covered 2 different ones on here. This other one's like, let's say, a non-net and a free net. I have talks out there on it. It's from 2011, but I think it's still pretty valid. Want to know more about I2P? There's their FAQ, Tor's FAQ for their stuff. Tor manual, definitely go looking through that if you want to find out some more details. Tons of technical documentation on I2P, and if you go read that, you'll see everything I said that was wrong during the first introductory slides. Sites of mine. This is the notes page, which I probably need to fix some more. We've been showing it throughout the class because I've been too lazy to type in everything, and I wanted to make sure I got it closer to right. That's why I keep my notes, and occasionally I go out and update it. Could be useful for you. Oh, if you want to see more things about how to attack darknets, but more of an academic level, it would be this one. I talk about all sorts of other attacks with little silly animations of smiling computers. I've been thinking about updating a version of it to propose at DEF CON, and hopefully it's new enough that they don't think it's the same talk, where instead of talking about the academic side of it, talk vaguely about that, but then give the stories and a few other ones like I did so far, and actually show doing it as best I can. Now granted, it'd be with my own faked up hidden services, but it still might be fun. I have this very old video on how to set up Tor, though it's probably not so valid anymore because they've changed quite a few things since I did that video. Another video on how to create hidden services. Quick announcement, DerbyCon's coming up this year, September 24th through the 28th, Louisville, Kentucky. Hope you can make it. Technically, I guess if you're not doing classes, it's 26th through the 28th. And here's a bunch of other cons I go to. And this is only a small, short list of them. I go to a lot of conferences. And finally, are there any questions? And if there's any questions you want me to turn off the computer recording for, let me know. So no questions? In that case, 42 is the answer to all of them. Well, in that case, I thank you very much for your time, and I will hopefully see you at another class.